Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is level 1 continuation from last week because there's so much information there that I didn't get a chance to go over all of it, but also continuation into lesson 2 of level 1. And lesson 2 is a 4-part lesson. So if you guys have access to the recorded whiteboards in your homework, I really encourage you to use the homework because I go into very great detail. And again, I'm not a university trained scientist or anything like that in any way, but I try to use some of the language of the world of science, of the objective world, so that way you can start to comprehend more about this, which is a shape of esoteric energy or something that is abstract, something that is not part of your perception in the 5 senses. So in part 2, we talk a lot about the royal we talk a lot about electromagnetism and the relationship between the electron flow and the magnetic field that is created as a result, because there are many analogs in the physical world of energy that look exactly like this shape. So I'm going to talk a lot about that today. Of course, all of this is going on. All of our class right now is going on in the energetic weather report. Circumstances of very, very large, I don't even have vocabulary words to describe it, crazy, insane, and intense events that are happening. So what I wanted to say, like, as I was battling, as I always do, even more intensely than ever because of these, events of what I guess we could loosely call World War III unfolding now. But I wanted to give everyone a message of encouragement because really this is what we train for. Like in terms of your lasagna, physical dance, and also your inner energy work that you do to comprehend time and to have a sense of what does flying towards optimum timelines look like. Like when we think about this graph and we think about being either at an angle and going towards events that will lead towards death, or in alignment with an eternal existence and a regenerative existence, that you're really in a very good moment to apply these abstract lessons to your life, okay? So again, this is everything that we train for. I would like for people to not go into like just fear and stress needlessly, but I would like for you to know that your intentions matter, and what you do with your mind and with your energy very much matters, and your emotions matter too. So also I have to tell you, like, I am greatly, greatly challenged by technology and being able to focus through technology. So I am not going to admit everyone to class if people come in late. I will touch technology at one moment in order to be able to do that. So please excuse me if you try to come into class and can't do that because I cannot focus through this. And I'm also literally protecting your planet and holding the fabric of space-time together while I'm trying to do this presentation and fight all the forces of evil. So it's a lot. It helps me if you arrive on time. So going back towards last week's material, where we left off, I want to talk about the color proportions. I also want to emphasize, as I don't think that I have, that this shape is the shape of time moving amidst itself. So all of the parts of this are made up of time, and this is an innate aspect of your own neurology and your own being inside. So in the same way that in the atmosphere, you can have a weather formation, such as a hurricane or a tornado, that is made of nothing more than the air, the atmosphere, water vapor moving amidst itself, but it has a type of solidity. This shape is also made of nothing more than time moving amidst itself. But the rate of time is not consistent. There are different speeds, I don't have better words for it, but different qualities of how time is flowing. In fact, everything that I'm teaching you here can be considered a language of pure light or information. It is the language of color and line and shape and form and movement and texture and tone. So I'm going to repeat that many times. What do I mean about this? It is more encompassing than just calling something like a higher dimensional language or a light language. Light can have many qualities. Light can arrive in many different ways or be experienced in many different ways. And one of the things I want to focus on here is movement. If you took my Path of Light class, you already know that one of the innate qualities of both light and time is that there is movement, and it is almost impossible to corral it or encompass it or stop it without diluting or redefining the very nature of what you are using. So this time is flowing. This is not a static shape. Keep on trying to hold it up so that you can kind of like see it better. My other little one broke. They're very fragile. So this is not a static shape. It is made of energy that is flowing. We're also going to begin focusing a lot on singularity, or the singularity. This place where I'm always placing my pointer over here is a very important part of the information that is contained within this shape. Also, as you master this shape, you can master it and apply it to different scales of reality, from the very smallest to the very largest. And also, please excuse me, as I'm not only trying to choose my words wisely and communicate well, but I'm doing this amidst so much cerebral warfare of what's going on with different frequency weapons and things that are happening in our world. So please know that it's very challenging, but we are all going to focus through this and be able to do this. So let me trace for you the pathways of how energy flows around this shape, knowing that you can apply that to the energy flowing around an atom, or a tiny one-celled organism, or your own multicellular organism, or your planet, or the star at the center of the solar system, or even the galaxy, all right? So energy does emanate from this point here, and then it flows in figure eights. So it flows, we'll use words like up and down, random, contextless words, but we will use them. It flows down here along this curve. Then there's an unexpressed part of this sculpture where there's really an extra circle out here. It flows out here, and then it goes to the top of this circle, and then it flows down here back to the center, and then it flows down through here, around to the side, up to the top, and then down through here. And that's a figure eight. And it doesn't just have one figure eight, but when I draw a cross section of this for my easy diagrams, I just draw one figure eight. But please know that this shape is comprised of many figure eights, and that is really what lends solidity to it. It's called a torus. This shape is a torus, but it really is a double torus. So you must imagine again that there's cake of a donut over here, cake of a donut over here, and one of the donuts go around like this. And then you, of course, have the donut hole goes up and down like this. But then imagine also that you have another donut. And here is the cake of the other donut that comes over here. And here's the cake of the other donut over here. And then you have a donut that is going around like this. Oops, that's why my sculptures break. And then also that same donut has a donut hole that goes through like this. And both of those donut holes match and coincide and go into the middle together. And that area of coincidence, or place where vectors come together, that is singularity. And if you can comprehend and master that, then you really are very well along the path of being able to master reality. What I taught you in Path of Light class is really a lot about how these shapes relate to gravity. Light has a relationship with gravity, but it is not like a bicycle that can fall down a hill into a gravity well, but gravity wells are created by light. And you can consider this to be gravity wells inside of you, but don't get too stuck on that, because I also recognize that, again, to your five senses perception in your biological body, when I say gravity wells, you're always thinking like something is heavy and something falls down, like down towards your feet, and your feet go toward the center of the earth. But however, please just know that you're very influenced by your brain and your eustachian tube and your vestibular organs that give you a sense of up and down. And that is why you think like, oh, gravity is something moving towards my feet, right? Like we will have whatever here, like my lip gloss falls down towards my feet, right? But that is not accurate. And what you really have is at the center of Earth's core, there is a crystalline structure, although you would consider it more like a metal, but start thinking of metals as crystals, highly organized, mineral structure that is there that has solidity, and it is spinning. So just as I've taught you that this is time spinning amidst itself, now we comprehend that Earth has a magnetosphere, a magnetic field that surrounds it as a protective, life-giving envelope that is exactly this shape. And it actually is just the horizontal donut, not necessarily the one that goes around like this, to simplify it for your mind. So, because when you see images of Earth's magnetosphere, it will largely look like, the torus shape. But the Earth has a magnetosphere as an end result. I wouldn't call it electricity, but the energy form that is generated by the core of Earth which is spinning. Like imagine it whirling like a ballerina, like pirouetting around. And that sends out these amazing magnetic force fields. And the magnetic force fields are essential for life. So one of the things I wanted to emphasize from my notes is the planets that aren't alive. Let me consult my clipboard of planets that aren't alive. I know, as we laugh horribly about that. But yes, so when you look at the solar system, you can tell by harmonics, which I'm going to tell you about from lesson one, which I didn't get to, that there should be a certain arrangement of planets. Like there are patterns and recipes that go throughout the world. These patterns and recipes relate to the arrangement of matter, even on a tiny level, atomic and molecular, but also on the larger level of planets and vast galaxies and things that are too large for you to conceive of as a human. And these are because of the larger organizational waves that are divine harmonics. And those larger organizational waves are what I make representations of in my artwork. So whenever you can see these, fine little lines that I draw, what I'm really drawing are the overlapping beauty of all of these incredibly complex lines that are lines of energy. And they also relate to timelines. So time is not full of random events. And I'll always bring it around to, what we are experiencing in our life right now. Like I told you one time, I was walking my dog on a road without a real sidewalk, and a car came around the edge, and I thought that it was a little bit close to us, but not really imperiling us or anything like that, but it whizzed on by, and I remember thinking, oh, like if things had gone badly, like that car could have plowed right into me and my dog, and I got a very, very clear insight. That was like, no, actually, that was not one of the potential narratives for that day or for that moment that was written into the fabric of space, time, and consciousness as it relates to my body and my dog's body. So please know that although I draw this shape and I tell you all the time that where I'm placing my pencil right here, that is the membrane of death. And that's the end of all timelines, except for the one timeline that goes back to infinity. That one doesn't have an end. You can think of it as actually a big giant loop. I know that I'm going to liquefy your brains now. I always show it as one straight line, a pencil going up like this, but with your brain now, you can always imagine that something that's straight like this is actually a circle on edge. Wait, I'll even use my coffee saucer to display this for you. Move my little coffee drink. I know it's not a perfect shape and it has coffee on it too, but like here's a circle, but here it is on edge. And that looks like a straight line going up and down, but you know that it's a circle. That's what you actually have going on here with this central core timeline that I always draw as an up and down like this. What it really is something that emanates from here and it comes all the way out towards you on the screen. It comes all the way back here and then goes all the way back in towards here, but you see it as this. So like, okay, good. I'm happy I liquefied your brains. Like happy World War III, everyone. Good. All right, fantastic. And hopefully that was hilarious. But truly, there is not necessarily many paths of death or peril to either side of you. Like as you're trying to stay in this central zone where you will be aligning with your personality characteristics and life events that are eternal. It does not mean that you're like, oh, like I'm walking on a tightrope, and if I do one little thing and I fall to either side, there's all of these potential pitfalls of death on every side. That is not truthful. What is truthful is, as I talked about in lesson 1 last week, there's very, very strict architecture or series of calculations that must occur on the outer membrane of the torus field. That's where the sprinkles go on a donut. And that is where you have these complex series of calculations that I have said is similar to Sudoku, wonderful mathematical puzzle game, where within each little box, the numbers must add up. And within each longer row, the numbers must add up. So there's a totality to the skin of the torus, and it has been mapped. And there are lines that emanate outward, or let's say linear events that emanate outward from the source, and they go first thing, second thing, third thing, fourth thing, blah, 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 the end. All right. And that all adds up to totality. And then coming from a different direction, first, second, third, fourth, blah, 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 back to the beginning, also adds up to totality. So you cannot just have random moments where you inexplicably get smooshed on the highway, or some whatever alligator flies in through the open window and bites your face off, and then you're dead. Like, that does not happen. There are actually only very specific moments that add up to a death in your life, and that those deaths have to be part of the cosmic architecture. They're not random, and they can't be, let's say, randomly or capriciously produced. So please feel protected by that knowledge, because I think that many people are in a sense of self-concern, as there are, we're in world events where you can be imperiled, even if you're eating some healthy salad. You're like, this healthy salad sure does taste great, like, as a whatever giant bomb is exploding and imperiling the earth. Like, I'm making wonderful jokes here and really not interested in energizing those realities. So that's why I'm trying to make it humorous, because you might feel like the events of your life are out of your control or out of control in general. And I'm trying to tell you that you make an enormous contribution to the events. They're not out of your control, although you might not be in the totality sense of being God yet to totally control your life, but you make a contribution. And also, events are not totally out of control from the larger time structure. They are actually very much in an organized sense in the larger time structure. Then also, of course, I teach my class to my wonderful enrolled students and other people who are not demonically possessed, not devil worshippers. So of course, they other people who are, let's say, not in alignment with life affirming and life giving worldviews, thought patterns, and behavior patterns have a different lesson to receive. So I'm teaching you guys all about eternal life and what it is to be on this path of least likelihood, and how you are not randomly or capriciously killed. Many other organisms in your world right now are actually experiencing the end result of the flawed calculations of their life. Like 1 + 2 + 3 + 4, blah, 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 blah. They ended up, I should make it rhyme, being in a war, and then they ended up dying. And that is because of so many things in their life, not just small choices like I talk about choosing coffee or tea in the morning, but much, much larger choices, ideological choices, and choices about which behavior characteristics are energized within the body. So your DNA is an incredibly complex series of time potentials. And it really is about how you energize those potentials. When I say those words, if you only heard the words, you would say that is meaningless drivel and has no bearing on reality. So then I have to tell you the imagery, and I hope that you will also receive telepathic broadcast of what is truthful. But then there's, now I'm getting kind of a little bit drawn off track, but there's very, very deep meaning to your life. And I will go more into all of this. And sorry if I looked down and I kind of got off track, it's because I was like, no, let's not go down that mental pathway. Let's refocus and go down a different mental pathway. The singularity. And please excuse me while I just have some hydration here. Okay. Oh, and you know what? Before I start on the singularity, now I'll see if anybody's waiting in the waiting room. Press a button here and see if anybody's waiting. Okay, I don't think anybody's waiting. All right, cool. Thank you. This is what this place is. Singularity, or the singularity. In this sculpture, it represents the infinite stretching of the fabric of space-time, or a place moment where the fabric or interwoven pattern of both space and time and consciousness achieves so much acceleration and intensity of truthfulness that everything that can possibly happen is happening there all at once, all overlapping. And that also includes the subset from infinity of all the things that can never happen. This is the place where everything that can possibly happen happens at the same time. Also, this is the place where everything that can never happen happens all at the same time. You're like, Aurora, now my brains are even more pulverized and liquefied than they were before. Good, let's keep going. All right, so what do I mean by this? Singularity is infinity. It's everythingness. And that means that it does contain everything. It contains the infinite possibilities of whatever can happen in time, an infinite number of stories or potentials. It also contains the infinite number of stories or potentials of things that can never happen. That is a subset. So like, here's my room. My room contains everything. Now my studio now is like the hyperspace. My studio is hyperspace, and everything that's in my studio is everything that can ever happen. All right, including my coffee cup. And then there's also in my studio containing in hyperspace all the things that can never happen. I put them in a pile, like this is the garbage, this can never happen. But both of these things, these subsets, exist in the same place. I'm going to just keep going further. The singularity, or this place of infinity, is like a home that has infinite doorways. You have emanated from there as consciousness, and consciousness also is reflected and contained in all the other light or photons in the world around you. And everything is on a journey to return back to there, except for the stuff that is not on a journey to return back to there. And also except for the stuff that never should have been emanated from there. Good, more brain liquefaction. A lot of stuff that is here at infinity should not be emanated into existence. It should exist in my hyperspace studio in a box labeled, do not make any of these things happen. Got it? Got it. What the flying rainbow lasagna is and what entropy is a something to do with all of that stuff. So now let's bring it around to lasagna. I will always keep the focus on lasagna. This shape is the higher dimensional form of this shape. This shape is what happens when you put this shape into hyperspace. I also use in my class, and I'll go through this again, the analogy that is math talk from your world. What cube is to tesseract, Taurus is to flying rainbow lasagna. And you guys are smart, and you do know what a tesseract is. So a cube is a third dimensional box. And the tesseract is what happens when you put the cube into a higher dimensional space. But I've seen many very unsavory animations of what a tesseract looks like. And I'm like, that is not really what it looks like. So please don't take those animations literally. Similarly, we have this shape, the Taurus shape. And when you add an additional dimension, first of all, you add a degree of freedom. That means that you can do more stuff, and that I would say axiom, like that truthfulness applies across all of the times that you add a dimension. Later on in the semester, I'll build the universe with you. We'll go from the 0th dimension all the way up to the 10th, 11th, blah, 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 infinity dimension. And when we talk about the 0th dimension, it's this spot right here. It's the center. It's the singularity. And why is it called 0? Not because it's worthless. Oh, I gotta tell you my Aurora stories. Of course, when I first came here as Aurora, I had no idea about money. I had no idea about how you do economy. I had no idea about commerce. And then I started to learn, like, of course, like if you want to get along in the world, like you're gonna have to learn how to buy and sell things. And I also learned that when someone has a price tag of 0 on something, it is considered worthless. It is considered nothing. Like this is not even worth 1 penny or $1. And in comprehending that people conceive of 0 in that way, I have had to change how I portray the 0th dimension, because it is not worth nothing. It is not 0 because it has no merit or something like that. It is 0 because it contains everything, including the box of stuff that should never exist. So yeah, the 0th dimension is singularity. It is the center, and it is the origin and the destination. And it's called the 0th dimension because you don't have to have any coordinates to go there. It is everything. And that also hopefully liquefies your brain. So let's say I want to put an address on a letter and send it to you. Where do you live? I live at infinity. Everybody can say that. Everybody, everything, every single, everything is there. Everything is there. And now I'll help you with your mind, because the way that everything is there is through these multiple overlapping figure 8 pathways. So you can comprehend that all of this energy is flowing, and at some point, boom, it's there. And then at some point, boom, it's there. And then at some point, it's there again. So the occupation of that time, space, place is overlapping by many different sparks or individualities. And that is how that place can be occupied by everything all at the same time. Also, please know that the singularity is the place where your concepts of time break down. And also, it is the place where all of your descriptive terms become meaningless. And it is also the place where all of your math breaks down. I'm just going to hydrate for a moment. Thank you while I collect my thoughts. Because this has to do with equations and infinity. In the math at university level, like the math that's in your world right now, if you have some of these descriptive equations about what is happening in the physical realm, equations about the conservation of energy, or how energy is transformed by a combustion or some type of a chemical or molecular event. All of those types of equations break down when you include as one of the elements infinity. It's like we can't do that math anymore once you include infinity as a number there. So the easier way of saying this is that to the people that are on the surface of Earth right now, when they look at some place where the fabric of space, time, and consciousness is infinitely stretched, those people cannot use math and the descriptive terms of the physical world to comprehend and know what is going on in those super stretchy places. That's called a black hole. In a black hole, the laws of physics break down. All of the equations that they use to describe the physical world around you are no longer applicable because some of the variables or input into the equation have to do with infinity. And they can't, it's like it breaks down, it does not give a satisfactory answer. And that is also true on the anthropomorphic level, that the event structures that you are used to experiencing in linear time, where you're like, first I go to the store and I buy the ingredients, then I mix up the batter, then I put it in the oven, and then out come the cupcakes. That's a linear experience. But those linear experiences break down, and they are not experienced in that way when you are at singularity. And it's almost, again, brain liquefyingly difficult for a linear mind to comprehend and know what is happening there. And math, which is what the Earth surface science objective materialist realm uses as a type of ESP or extrasensory perception, breaks down. And you cannot use math to calculate and to interpolate reality into those directions because reality breaks down. So let me grab a little stylus. That is why you have to stretch your tendril of attention. If you want to know what is happening at singularity or at a black hole, I was at the center of a black hole, at these amazing stretched places in the fabric of space-time, place your tendril of attention on that place. And if you want to know where it is, you have them inside of you. These are at the center of each one of your chakras. Sometimes I draw the chakras as if they are one cohesive whole. And when I do that, I brought this over. I actually have a whole sculpture that I made out of these, but it's so fragile. I just have it on a shelf because it's really like so easy to break. So I just brought one of like the little elements of it, but you can see how this element fits like right into here. Like it's the same shape, okay? And so what you really have is one larger red chakra, but then within there you have 7 layers: orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And of course, each one of these represents just an arc, a segment of a much, much larger circle. So sometimes I show these as if they are comprised as all 7 chakras nested together, but you also know that in some of my drawings, I show each one of these singularity points in different places. Like there's one that is in the center of your mind. That's where Indigo and violet come together. There's also one that is in the center of your pelvis, and that is where your red and your orange chakras come together. And then there's a center that is here, a center that is here, a center that is here. And if you want to know if those are all that you have in terms of singularity points in your own body, it's like that's just the basics. Those are just the simplified aspects of your anatomy. So when I do these drawings, I am like a person that's drawing physical anatomy. And maybe we're going to do a simplification. If we're going to show your blood supply, I'm just going to go draw some major arteries, kind of like come from your heart, and then the veins go back to your heart. All right, I'm not going to draw every branching capillary. Similarly, these chakras represent the major organs of your energy body or your time body or your light body. But I haven't shown every single branching capillary. I think if I did that, it would be confusing to your eyes and probably difficult for you to even perceive what is going on. But it is definitely there. So you have really at the center of every cell, imagine right now I'm like drawing like a cell membrane around this shape. At the center of every cell, you have this singularity. And you know what else you have at the center of every cell? You guys are smart, use your brains. You're like, oh, our brains are liquefied. Like we can't think right now. Don't worry, I'll fill it in for you. Your DNA. Your DNA, here's the cell membrane, and then here's the nuclear membrane, and then your DNA, boop, is right in there. And that is your connection to infinity. So it is a direct analog. Like I'm not being stretching stretching the definition in any way by saying that your DNA is a bridge of light between your physicality, structure, and infinity. It is literally what that DNA architecture does. And your DNA is similar to this shape, a dynamic object. It is not a static object. So please remove any expectations that were placed into you from whatever diagrams or cartoons were given to you in like educational settings, and even from the way that maybe deterministic expectations have described DNA up until this point, to say it is written in the DNA, and DNA is just like this, it's chiseled in stone. This is me. Chiseling something, DNA stone, and there it is. And it's just going to be there, whatever it is. Like they used to kind of describe this, like, you know, if you're overweight or if you have to wear glasses, like that's it. It's chiseled in stone. It's in there. It's going to happen in your life. But now we know very, very differently from that. There is a phrase called epigenetics, EPI. The prefix EPI means a phenomenon within a phenomena. So epi, like an epiphyte, is an orchid. It is a plant that grows on a plant. A hat on a hat. Good, you got it. So that epigenetics is the code that is within or combined with the code of your DNA. And your DNA represents potentials and it represents a blueprint, but it also is something that has an enormous amount of artistry and choice and aesthetics in the way that it is expressed, because not everything is expressed. Imagine if Mozart wrote some sheet music, and on the sheet music, I'm Mozart now. On the sheet music, you have, these are all the notes that you must play in order to be in the symphony. But then what if Mozart also wrote all the notes that you must not play? I was like, okay, play this, don't play this. Play this, don't play this. That's your DNA. In your DNA, you literally have some, either you could think of them as genes or patterns or genetic music that you want to play. That's like the music of life, symphony of life. You're staying alive. And you may sing that song by the Bee Gees in your head quietly. But there are also very many songs that are in your DNA as potentials that you don't want to play because they're the antithesis of staying alive. They're going dead. And that's like diseases and tumors and all sorts of bad things. Science and determinism used to erroneously inform people that if you had the potential for a disease in the DNA, it was just going to happen. And even in going to a doctor, like a traditional doctor, don't go to doctors right now. I am not a medical doctor and I do not give medical advice, but I am very skeptical of doctors right now. But it used to be when you went to a doctor, they would sit down with a clipboard. Oh, I'm so happy I have clipboards here now. And they would say, oh, okay, so let's just take your medical history. So like, how about grandma? Does grandma have this? Does grandma have this? Does grandma have this? How about grandpa? Does he have this? Heart disease, diabetes, cancer? Like the doctor is asking whether he needs to do tests to check on you based on your ancestors. The doctor is not asking like, hi, like, are you very different from your ancestors? Have you healed your ancestral trauma? Are you following in ancestral patterns and doing things exactly the same way? No, he is presuming that there is something that is chiseled in stone in your DNA, and that grandma had it, you've got it. And that if you've got it, you're going to experience it. None of that is true. Epigenetics tells us that none of that is true. And it's not true because when we look at identical twins who have literally the same potential, the same book, the same genetic code. They don't look the same, they don't have the same physical expression, and they don't develop the same diseases. So that means one twin might have the potential for a genetic disease like cancer, and they do not experience it in their life. But the other twin starts out with the same book, the same potential, the same sheet music, but plays the music really differently. And that guy plays some of the notes that you should never play and gets a disease. And when I describe it to you in that way, then I hope that it is much more self-empowering and less fearful. Because when people are told, like, you have this genetic code and you might have some bad diseases in there, like, okay, like, go experience your diseases. Like, that's literally what doctors do. And what I am telling you is that this is why I'm not a doctor in any way. You have an enormous amount of influence on your body in terms of how your body is healthy and what is expressed from within. All of those potentials that are expressed respond to your feelings, your thoughts, and your expectations about reality. And so let me put down my stuff so I can gesture here. So your DNA is supercoiled. This is why I really encourage you to check in on my level 2 stuff. Level 1, lesson 2 stuff, because I talk all about the solenoid and also the shape of DNA supercoiling. These are the same shape, and they relate to a lot of words that are in the science world. The amount of supercoiling that is in your DNA has a direct expression on what you experience in your body. DNA books or scrolls are not all accessible to the RNA messengers that make things happen. Please do not connect me or anything that I'm telling you to all of the genetic aberrances and abhorrent mutilations in your world. Because when I talk about RNA now, many people only know about like, oh, like that's that weird thing they've been injecting into people. I'm like, let's not talk about that. Reflecting away any of those, because those are not good plasmids. Those plasmids are like a wreath, like a circular winding of DNA, are bad, and you do not want them to come inside of you. So I'm not even going to talk about these things. We sip some coffee and let us not speak of those things. If your DNA is considered a scroll, like a papyrus, a long, flat piece of paper that then gets curled up from either end. And the things that are curled up inside, you cannot read easily at all. How does RNA function? Let's imagine that my arm is one strand of DNA, even though as I'm beginning to describe DNA to you, you know that it is curled, crocheted, and formed into amazing, complex topological structures. It does not just exist as one long thread. But if we imagine that my arm is one long thread of DNA, now let me find something. I don't know. It could be my lasagna. Oh, it's too confusing. Let me use my remote control for this is now a piece of RNA, okay? This is RNA. And this little guy goes along the strand of your DNA, and it reads the bumpy architecture. It's kind of more like a roller coaster, goes up, down, up, down, up, down, and then it goes much like Braille. Like Braille, it feels the shape of those proteins and is able to sense what is happening on the surface of your DNA. That is how the book of your DNA is read. But if the information is tightly coiled in the inner levels of DNA scrolls, that information is not accessible. The process of coiling or uncoiling, this open or close of the scrolls, this is called methylation. It has to do with the little processes of winding the string of your DNA around proteins that are called histones. And the methyl, I would say sculpture, molecule is what helps to make that possible. So if you read about stuff about people's ability to detox their bodies and how that relates to methylation, basically what the person is trying to tell you is that you can have the ability to do something like to detoxify from aluminum, but if it is deeply curled inside of your scroll, then your RNA messengers are like, well, I would love to read that chapter, but I can't get in there. And then you can't detoxify from aluminum because I don't know how to do that. And that is the problem that a lot of people in your world right now have. Methylation is related as a behavior to the MTHFR. People call it a gene, but let's call it like a complex or a combo or a musical melody that's in your body. And I've already told you that MTHFR is actually in 60% of the population, not a minority. And it actually traces itself back to Pharaoh Akhenaten, who was a very strange person, who was a hybrid, like a galactic hybrid with many interesting genes that came from otherworldly places. And that the inability to do the processing of certain toxins or pollutants from the world that people have now, and some of these other frailties come from him. Okay, mommy, daddy, how do I know if I have MTHFR? What does this mean for me? Here are some of the characteristics, and it might be you. Skin that is thin or delicate or can be easily bruised or it's a connective tissue problem, basically, easy to get stretch marks. And that doesn't heal very effectively. Same thing with hypermobility, what people call double jointedness, or tendons that are super stretchy in their sockets, like, the hips and the shoulders being super stretchy. Midline birth defects. That can be anything. The midline of the body comes up and down like this. So that can be things that are like a cleft palate that is in the center of the mouth, or tongue ties in the center of the mouth. That can also be heart defects, like hearts that don't close fully and there is a heart murmur, holes in the heart, symmetry where the heart is asymmetrical for the way that it's supposed to be, and some other diaphragm and rib cage deformations that also sometimes happen for these people. Hernia, umbilical hernia, supraumbilical hernia. So that's a connective tissue problem where you don't have enough fibers holding your collagen together right along the navel, along the midline. And then also some of the people who are born with this have specific types of birth colorings, like a mark. And it's sometimes called a stork's kiss. And a lot of the time it's right in the forehead or in the center of the forehead, or sometimes it's on the back of their head or on the back of their neck. Also, again, like kind of along the midline, like here, but behind them, or sometimes the base of their spine. So, interesting stuff. And also, why am I giving you such extensive information on this? Why does it matter? Because people who have those characteristics and also, have taken a genetic test and they know what's going on in their genes, even though we have to talk a lot about the invalidity of PCR tests. But those people do not process folic acid effectively. And folic acid is what is in bleached, enriched, bromated flour. Everything that you're going to buy at the pastry shop is full of that stuff, enriched flour. And now they put it in all the tortillas too. I know. And I do very intentionally avoid that stuff. And I have for years, not only because of, like the bad stuff they spray on wheat and other forms of pollutants that are on wheat, but also, glyphosate and other things like that. But they put this enrichment vitamin on there. They're like, this will really help all the pregnant women out there. We got to protect those pregnant ladies. So put this artificial, unprocessable vitamin on top of all of the wheat. And it doesn't matter that 60% of people will find that to be a type of allergen that will make their brain inflamed and even cause mild retardation. But we will put this on the food. So yeah, no, you guys don't want that. What you want instead is called folate. And that is what is available in actual green leafy vegetables like spinach or something like that. And so yes, no, if you're a pregnant woman or anybody in the world, I would really recommend not taking the folic acid, but just eating a bunch of beautiful greens in order to get that stuff into your body. Because folic acid it's just like it adds up in the brain as a type of unprocessed metabolite, and that is why it causes reduced cognitive ability. Something that the government loves to do to people. Like, sprinkle this on their bread, they will have reduced cognitive ability. That's me, evil government. Ha ha ha. Sprinkle it on their bread, they will whatever, on their morning buns, they will not be able to think clearly. Okay, so yes, and of course you should radicalize your world and take control of your food supply again and get this crapola out. But then you also might want to avoid some of the enriched foods in order to prevent that. Of course, if you, and also, you know what else? The aluminum adjuvants that are put into some amazing products these days that not everybody is able to process this stuff out. So you really do have to comprehend that not everybody has a same type of body. In fact, there's an enormous amount of biodiversity, and not everybody has the same capacity to process pollutants from their body, and that these unique genetic proclivities have certainly been weaponized against certain aspects of the population that are like persona non grata around here. So you have to protect yourself from that type of stuff. Let me hydrate. But you have an enormous amount of control over this methylation or epigenetic process. Even just thinking of thoughts such as, I have control over the shape and expression of my genes has an impact on your genes. So if you think of thoughts such as, my life is written in stone, I'm a sad victim, I have no idea what's going on around here, don't ask me, it's not my job, that has an impact on your genes. What that does is, if we imagine like my genes are all looped like this, and my fingers represent loops, right? If I have important information inside of my genes and it's all closed up like this, and you think a thought like, I have no control over my genes, I'm just a stupid idiot, flotsam and jetsam floating on the waves of life. All of this stays closed. But when you think like you knew something, I have an enormous impact upon my genetic behavior, what I think and what I feel, and even beyond what I eat and drink, but what I do and the energy and time potentials that I align with have a huge impact on the expression of my DNA. That can be a thought that literally allows for these tightly coiled springs or pages of your DNA that were stuck together to now be open, so that then here's the RNA messenger can go on those loops and read them. Be like, oh, that's how you dismantle that term tumor. And oh, like that's how you do that in my body. And oh, like that's how you stay alive. So when I say that and then bring you back around to the abstract, holistic presence of time in your body, what separates you from being on a timeline that's non-ideal, where you're going to get a disease or die, or being on a timeline that's about longer or eternal life, it has everything to do with your thoughts and your feelings and how you play the musical score of your genes, how you play the notes that you should play and not play the notes that you should not play. Put the notes that you should not play in a box, clearly labeled. Do not manifest this bad stuff. Seal it with duct tape and leave it in a state that is known as entropy. Okay, so when we take this Taurus shape and move it in a higher dimension, what you end up with is flying rainbow lasagna. When we do this, it changes the quality of this singularity or zeroth dimension. This zeroth dimension, again, contains everything, including the stuff that it should not and cannot contain. What I do with flying rainbow lasagna is create two different states, but it can be more than two, but we'll start with two. One state is up here. That's the state of energy. So here I'm going to point to this little stellated part as energy. And I just always do that for consistency. But energy can be anywhere. But that's energy. All the stuff that should be in my studio and that should be in reality. But then I sometimes jump the flying rainbow lasagna down here. I jump the Taurus structure down here. And then look at that. The zeroth dimension and the singularity is in a different place. It has a different vantage point. It's down here where I'm wiggling my pinky finger. And that is called entropy. So this shape is an inside out of this. Makes this, all right? And this, when it is at entropy down here, is like the off button. It's the do not exist. It's the does not exist. When this shape is jumping up and down, I exist. All of this stuff doesn't exist. Here's all the stuff that exists. Here's all the stuff that doesn't exist. Here's all the stuff that should be in reality. Here's all the narratives that hang together. Here's Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. And then here's all the stuff that shouldn't exist. All right. So when I show this to you, this is the higher dimensional potential for your DNA, where as you are taking the various places that are known as singularity inside of your body, these amazing stretched places, and you start to do this dancing maneuver with yourself, what you are doing is energizing some characteristics or genes or time potentials, and de-energizing some stuff that you do not want to happen. And that can be like getting diseases, having bad stuff happen to you in your life, having atomic bombs exploded, in foreign countries, and other bad stuff that are reality structures that you don't want to experience. Got it? And so please know now, when I talk about the Bible as satanic literature, when I talk about the profound destruction of the book of Revelation and why I warn you against it, like I have not read the entire Bible. I came here, as a cultural outsider. I learned about that book because it has such deep psychological impact of creating an expectation in people that not only would you die as an individual, but your whole world would die. That's a bad story. Please take that bad story and methylate it, roll it up inside of a scroll that no one will ever find, and put it in the oubliette, and do not manifest that story. That is not a good story. Sorry, it was so loud that Zoom gave me like a little pop-up. I was like, is everything okay? Do you need to change your audio settings? Sorry for overemphasizing everything. Oh my goodness, no, but I'm extremely emphatic these days as I look at world events, because now is the moment to come into empowerment. If there's ever a moment to crack out of your egg of cognitive limitations where you're like, don't blame me, I just work here, I'm just flotsam and jetsam, someone else makes all of these big decisions, and someone else is God, and someone else makes reality happen, and it's not my fault, and I just work here. As opposed to saying like, I am a powerful contributor to reality. My mind, emotions, and spiritual efforts and disciplines have a direct impact on my DNA, my behavior, my flight through time and the events of my life. And many of us doing this type of conscious activation or selective activation of our own DNA has a cumulative, cognitive, and fabric of time space impact on all of us, all of us, all of us. So let's return to the bad stuff. Book of Revelation is this implanted expectation that your world would be brought to a boiling point by evil and then sanitized with some kind of rivers of lava, and then Jubilee. Everything is going to be super cool after that, guys. And I'm like, this is a terrible story. And you shouldn't carry that story inside of you. It is basically like saying, like, in your DNA, you book of your DNA, don't listen. But if there was a thing that said, like, first you're going to get really, really sick, and then you're going to die horribly, but then you'll go someplace really nice. And that is not a good story, but you understand that is the story of most death cult religions. And what you're seeing played out on the geopolitical arena right now are two death cult religion number one versus death cult religion number two in the showdown of the ages. And I'm getting very silly, but it's very world wrestling. It's very boxing match. And it is the not very believable worldview struggle between two worldviews that are not that different, that are really two religions, because I'm talking about Christianity and Islam, that both have the expectation of dying horribly and then going to paradise. Got it? And that's like, it's, so I always refer to this. It's never an endorsement of the man. And I always say that too. Terence McKenna, because he was wrapped up in the CIA. He wasn't in it, but he was definitely part of it in some way. But he was a great thinker and a great orator. And I really do appreciate like the way that he talks about things and his worldview, and just, don't be like him or listen to everything he says. But he talked about and gave this great talk one time that was the personal eschaton and the book of Revelations and the planetary eschaton. And eschaton is the sense of like end of the world, end of everything. So he spoke well and articulated the concept that to the traditional materialist, everything has an end. To everything except for the path of least likelihood, that is truthful. All of these timelines come to the final denouement, which is death. And that in can keep my mind focused here, comprehending that those deaths exist, there's a microcosm to the larger expected macrocosm that the whole entire planet would die. And this is very infantile or unevolved, very similar to the mind state of a child. I've been a babysitter. I know what kids are like. I don't have my own kids, but like when kids are wearing, like a little winter jacket with like a hood, they put the hood up over their head and they're like no one can see me now. And like, that is silly. Like, of course, like we can see you, but it is a childlike view of the world. Like, if I can't see you, you can't see me, and you all, I think that you will all think that I have disappeared. It is childlike to think that if you disappear from reality as an organism, that the rest of the world will necessarily evaporate. Like it's a little bit like saying, like very self-centeredly or narcissistically, like you think that you have created the whole entire world and that the whole entire world, lives for you. And if you go bye-bye, the world goes bye-bye. But there is some unhealed, very non-evolved part that is inside of many people that does still really believe that. And so you must know and comprehend that the world does emanate from you, and you are generating and contributing to events, but also the world is a larger collaborative, either symphony of life, or you could think of it as a painting that everyone is painting something part of it. And it's called DNA. And that if you go bye-bye, the rest of the world is still doing stuff with their DNA and they don't all go bye-bye. And that also includes like bumblebees, blades of grass, puppies, kittens, butterflies, all sorts of wonderful good things. And all of that life doesn't just disappear because you have closed your eyes or because you have died or because your consciousness is no longer in a viable state in reality. So please know that there is something that is the fabric of space-time that precedes and supersedes your own individuated consciousness, and that it is not all simply dependent upon your continued existence. But this is the unhealed or very erroneous, or I want to say, immature view of a lot of these death cult religions. And then there is some mania in applying it to the industrial age where a large, industrially created type of warhead or system could actually kill all people at once. Like that, you understand? I hope that the words made it make sense. But like, you're a stupid idiot if you think the world disappears when you disappear. But if you press a button to use an A bomb or something like that, then you can definitely make yourself and the entire world disappear. I do not want that to happen. Don't do it. And that also is something that I don't consent to in the fabric of reality. Like one or a small group of crazy, malformed people should not and shall not control or dictate the fates of so many other people and organisms who are in the world. So as I'm talking to you about this, also, I have to tell you, I don't want to dilute our class, but we sometimes have to take a break for my little dog. But I have newly hatched baby quail chicks that I am taking care of here in my home, trying to get some fresh eggs. And we might take a moment's break so that I can make sure that they are all doing okay, because they only hatched 2 days ago and they're so tiny, they don't even have enough sense to drink water. And I have to kind of check on them and make sure that like they don't die of dehydration. So we will take a break. How about like in a moment now? Because my spidey senses are telling me like I think I have to go take care of some special needs quail chicks that are like not sensible to even think for themselves to drink water. Okay, so let's do that. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for allowing me to be also, as I think it's a beautiful balance and dichotomy. There's a lot of bad eschatological potential ends, like the end of stuff in the world. But I have the beginnings of new life over here, and I need these little guys to stay alive, and they are very fragile. So let me just press pause. Thank you. Thank you for that brief break. Absolutely. Now I can stay focused even a little bit more. So talking about the potentials for life and the inevitability of eternal life, but the fulfillment of people's expectations of death, especially as it relates to the social and ecological whole, if one is erroneously programmed. And that's why the book of Revelations is so, or Revelation is so corrosive, because it is grooming. It is grooming in the implantation of the expectation that death is inevitable, or that death is positive, or that death will lead to paradise. So that's where I wanted to really make sure to properly inform you. If you go to the membrane of death, like if this is the consciousness vector of you moving through time, and you go in this direction, you cannot get past that little edge. Let's go closer on the screen. Like, let's see, you're going, and you want to get past that little edge. You cannot. This is the fake lie that says live badly, die horribly, and then go to heaven, like go right past through the membrane of death and somehow go to heaven because heaven is this area over here. And that is grabbing my other complementary sculpture, which is this little guy, which is, I know, not very artistic. It's made out of kids' clay. This is like Play-Doh clay, but I made it many years ago and it has lasted through my wild time gyrations pretty well. So this is, of course, the eight-lobed shape that represents the negative space of the chakra shape. And these areas are separate from and not accessible to the areas that are the vortexes where you are moving through time. So this is your life. This is the vortex. The roughly triangular shape right here, where you are alive and you're moving through time. In this area here, you are alive, 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 alive. This is the membrane or boundary that represents the end of life, death. But then beyond here, like where my fingers are wiggling, that is a higher dimension. But you can't get there from here. You do not die to get to paradise. That's the problem that I'm having with people. I'm mildly inflamed that these people don't know this. Like, you do not die to get to paradise. No. Laura, how do you get to paradise? You go to the zeroth dimension. You stay alive. Again, sing the Bee Gees song. You stay alive. So in order to go to paradise or experience the true blissful nature of eternal experience, you go to infinity. And this is what we also do with flying rainbow lasagna. So please note that for a very, very long amount of time, this shape existed, and it is a valid shape in the math of life. But there have been problems with you being able to effectively go up that central timeline and make it to the zeroth dimension. And some of those problems have been things that are impure on the membrane of death. We call it the Puties, those pesky occupiers of the interstices, Puty and the plural Puties. Hat tip, of course, always to Pedro, who's in this class, but he might not be here today. But yeah, he came up with that acronym after I'm always talking about those pesky occupiers of the interstices, who are consciousness residues of musicians who once were alive. And they took their genetic musical score and they didn't play the notes that are the notes that you must play. They played all of the notes that you should never play, like a chord, dun, dun, the worst music ever. And that happened on Mars. And when that happened, it really destroyed Mars. It destroyed a lot of the fabric of space-time. It destroyed the toroidal magnetosphere around Mars. It disrupted the magnetosphere. So an alive planet is a planet that has a healthy magnetosphere. Earth is alive. Hooray! And we will stay alive because I am here. But we have problems in our neighborhood. Venus does not have a magnetosphere. Venus is dead. Mars is dead. And then I've also explained to you at length on various different, class culminations about the rubble field known as the asteroid zone that is between Mars and Jupiter. And there used to be a planet there, and that is now like a dismembered corpse. So you have corpse, dismembered corpse, and then a lot of other problems. And that's very, very bad. So yes, there are harmonic patterns and proportions that we can talk about that dictate and determine where our planet's going to be spaced in relationship to the sun that emanates and creates them. And all of this is because of galactic superwaves and the way that material matter aligns itself amidst all these complex waves and frequencies. And so you can just from that, all you need to do. The takeaway is everything has not been okay for a very long amount of time, even into what you know is like deep antiquity or prehistory. There are problems in your neighborhood, and that what you're experiencing on this planet is just the most recent destabilization. That's not even the right word, but I lost my track because I'm turning my mind to the people that were on Mars. They were not a civilization, but they were a group or an organized remnant from the asteroid belt who are very, very much entrenched with technology. Their whole life experience is the innate struggle that they're having between the technology that they use and that sustains them, and then how it keeps on like screwing them over and over. And of course, I come from Earth in a form that does not use technology. You call that prehistory and Atlantis. But please know that we are like, we don't like your stupid technology. We look down on your stupid technology. We don't want any of that here. And in that layer of reality, they are impending to bring it whether you want it or not. So really what you are doing here in this layer of reality is you're in the inevitable projected consequences layer. And if you fight against that bad SHIT here and you triumph, then that emanates outward from the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop, outward to the candy shell where Atlantis is, and then you have a different story. So even at the layer of larger time narratives, we are rewriting time with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. With Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you rewrite your own DNA, but you are, of course, not in a contextless void. You're connected to reality. When I say you rewrite your own DNA, I always use the analogy that your Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a pencil with an eraser, where you can erase out the structures that don't serve and they are, not positive and not optimum for you, and then write in its place a different story. But this cannot be an arbitrary story, and none of this happens on the level of anthropomorphism. So now let's look at, I'm going to share screen. I'm just going to share the whole screen. First, let me do this for privacy. This. Good. And then let me get rid of this. And I'm probably going to have to get rid of other stuff. But this is so I want to talk about the proportions, but then I also want to talk about this. This is DNA. No, just do a thing. Don't press buttons. You're scaring me. Computer, don't scare me. Good. Okay, good. So this is to show you what DNA is doing and directly how you apply Flying Rainbow Lasagna to the dance of your DNA. So the first thing is to comprehend that your DNA is not static, it is dynamic, and it is always moving. The patterns that it moves in are incredibly complex, and they're even higher dimensional than your five senses. Science can't even perceive the dance on the five senses level and not on the higher dimensional level. And so it doesn't even recognize that as pattern. Much the same way that in my Path of Light class, I describe how science in the objective materialist world is not complex enough to be able to know and recognize that the dance of molecules within your atmosphere is also a type of intelligence or a patterned information that is being conveyed to you. So please know that this is beyond linear language and beyond your English language and beyond the nerve plexus that you have in your brain to translate and comprehend the English language or whatever is your native language. Pardon me for people who are from another country, but this is a different type of conveyance of information. It's not in language, okay? So many different things. So first of all, your DNA has supercoiled forms and then has uncoiled forms. And there's a way to Flying Rainbow Lasagna in your supercoiled form, which is to dance it when it's in a more complex toroidal geometry, or instead of geometry, like topological shape, polygon, but when you're in one strand. Okay, so one strand happens all the time because your DNA has to replicate itself because you got to make the next generation of you. Not even, I'm looking for something that I can use. I usually have magical pipe cleaners, but I don't have anything. So I will have to use like a little charging cord. But the magical story of you and the recipe of you. Okay, so maybe I'll just keep this for when I have to gesture. DNA starts off as one strand where I'm wiggling my cursor over here. And then it splits apart. And this splitting apart is an unzipping that is a natural part of what your DNA is doing in order to make whatever are your cells of right now. Like right now, it is 3:17 p.m. You have to make your cells that you are going to jump into for 3:18 p.m. and 3:25 p.m. Your cells will die, and you have to jump into the next set of living, viable cells. And your DNA is the cognitive energy transference bridge of light from one reality structure and one cellular structure to the next reality structure and the next cellular structure, okay? And that's just been going on normally even before Flying Rainbow Lasagna ever had to be invented. You are always jumping and propelling yourself from moment to moment through time, through the dance of your DNA. So I'll show this to you, of course, when I'm in the larger screen, but in my little thumbnail there, like I'm always making these hand motions of like what your DNA is doing. Like, this is your DNA, and it is literally propelling you through time. That the motions of your DNA and all the things that it's doing, it splits itself apart, it copies itself, it zips itself back together, it splices itself into plasmids that are circular, it weaves itself into complex crochets, and then it unweaves itself. So it has this whole complex pattern in much the same way that, like, if you look at a butterfly when it is alive, it goes all over the whole garden. It flies to this flower, it stops over here, it goes over here. It has a whole behavior. But if you have a dead butterfly, which is what science does, science is like, I'm going to catch that butterfly, stick it in a jar, I'm going to kill it with some poison, then I'm going to cut it up, and I'm going to look at it and see if I can comprehend what a butterfly is and what it's doing. None of that is recognizing the butterfly when it is doing its dance, when it's going from flower to flower. And the butterfly is an apt metaphor because it represents you moving through time. You jump from event to event with no causality structure in between. That is the higher dimensional experience of yourself as a butterfly through time. But don't get stuck on the no causality structure because things, the math, you still have to do the math. But you can skip events. All right, just good. Okay, you got that one. The scientific viewpoint of what DNA is incredibly reductionist and facile and inadequate. And at this point, I'm celebrating that because when I look at what bad people do in your world, they're like, that's a fascinating concept. Can I use it to hurt people? I'm like, no, my shoulders go down. Like, no, like, that's not what I came here for. Came here for a very different reason. And I did not want to give you flying rainbow lasagna empowerment so that way you could be a worse person. Far from it. In fact, if I would say that goes in the box of things that should never be emanated, send those characteristics to entropy. So those are characteristics to be curled up, methylated into non-existence or not expressed. Or you can also unwrite them. And this has to do with the picture that I'm showing to you right here. So during the natural lifespan of DNA here, I'll just show with my fingers. Here's like DNA as one strand, and here it splits apart. And one strand goes like this, and one part of it goes like this. It's like a zipper that has unzipped. And that's what you see here up above the different protein structures symbolized by their different names, T, A, G, and C. And those are the 4 notes that you're going to play. And you have to make all of your songs out of only 4 notes. Like, Aurora, that's so hard because I only have 4 different things, like 4 different variables. But I'm like, it's not hard at all. And when you look at the array of life that is in the world, everything from a one-celled organism to you to whatever, something that's wildly different than you, like a tree or a giant whale, all of that is through using these same 4 notes or these same 4 sounds to create the symphony of life. So please know that you can put them together in an amazing combination. Like when we talk about human music, there's a piano that has 88 keys, but all of the songs that are from whatever the past 450 years or whenever it was invented, they use those 88 keys in wildly different and new combinations, and that is where we get music from. So the limitations of these 4 proteins are still giving you an enormous amount of elbow room and freedom in your self-expression. And the proteins are these little symbol structures. They have to fit together like puzzles or like Sudoku. T always fits with A and G always fits with C. So there are limitations in how you can put stuff together. I always emphasize the flying rainbow lasagna is not a random bringing together of formally divergent realms. It is not a random bringing together of the fabric of space-time. And it's definitely not a random or capricious way of changing your DNA. Like, oh, you want to have whatever, purple eyelashes or whatever, like unicorn horns sprouting out of your face. Like, none of that is what you're supposed to be shaped like. Like, please know, this is not to radicalize your appearance in any way. It's more to optimize your flight through time. And of course, as you are optimizing your flight through time, your appearance can and will change to your optimal appearance, but that is your most not only beautiful, but your most functional form. So please set aside any cultural beauty standards and expectations. And please know that there is a divine, I would say, not a blueprint, but an intention for what is your correct size, shape, and functionality that you achieve when you flying rainbow lasagna. So my dog flying rainbow lasagna is with me all the time. She's wonderful. And it does not mean that she has turned into like a giant Great Dane or something like that. She is not. She is still like a little tiny 10-pound Chihuahua, but she is the best version of 10-pound Chihuahua that she can be. I bring this up because as people are optimizing, let me go back to my face as I'm talking about this. We'll do more pictures too. But as people are talking about optimizing their DNA, they might be wanting to apply cultural beauty standards. Like they might be like, I want to be 6 feet tall instead of 5 feet tall. And I'm like, that is not necessarily the optimization of you and what your form is and what you should be shaped like. So please know that when you go through your ascension process and you come to view yourself through clarity, none of you will want what someone else has. Like none of you will be like, oh, like I really wish instead of being 5 feet tall, I was 6 feet tall. Like, no, that will seem so ridiculous. And you won't wish to have a different skin color, and you won't wish to have a different shaped face or earlobes or any of these things that people do crazy stuff to their bodies these days in order to make them look and feel different in their appearance. But please know that those are cultural projections and sometimes very arbitrary beauty standards. And so you must look at beauty like, imagine if you went to a foreign planet or something like that, and you're like, wow, like look at that cool jellyfish, and look at that weird thing, and look at that weird thing. Like not something that is based upon a fashion magazine or even great art. Like if you look at the Grecian marbles and classical depiction of what is beauty from the ancient world, all of these are cultural projections, and please know that your beauty and formfulness is assessed on a different level when you look at yourself, because you're also looking at yourself through time, and that a person might have a particular, pardon me, particular, oh, sorry, Chicky's sneezing there, a particular shape of their body or of their face, but maybe they're a horrible person or maybe very stupid and they've done terrible things. And there's like nice face, but you don't want the rest of what comes with that, appearance. Beauty standards are largely based on appearance, and they're not necessarily based on characteristics of what a person is and how they behave through time. In fact, if you want to start considering what is really truly beautiful, it is when your chakras are all in perfect alignment with the central core timeline. Like, this is not attractive. You're going to die, not looking so good. This is very attractive, and you're looking very good and very beautiful. And of course, when you're on this timeline where you're experiencing eternal life, your physical body will be in the optimum forms, that way you are not like the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter or any of these other examples of death. Okay, so death cult, I've already talked to you about that. It is not necessary to die in order to ascend. In fact, it is more difficult to transcend physical reality when you are dead. In fact, one of the reasons why you came here into reality to experience the push and pull and dynamic tensions of life is because that is how you learn and grow. That the truth is, if you didn't come into biological form, you would be very in a stasis, like stuck at your level of development, and you came here matriculated into the school of life to be able to learn and grow. That's also like saying you read the brochure and you came here and it was supposed to be an awesome pleasure cruise and instead turned into the Titanic, because there's not that much learning and growing happening right now. There's a lot of bad stuff. So I am here, of course, to help to restore the pristine nature of the system so that way you can learn and grow. Basically, like if you do bad stuff and align with the fabric of reality in the wrong way, you experience death, you get your assessment on the clipboard, and then you have to try to do things better. What about those guys that did things wrong according to the clipboard? They got stuck on the membrane of death over here. And they also, you could think of it as like they willingly went into the event horizon or an area of the time field where the fabric of reality breaks down. It doesn't make sense anymore. Like they're like, I'm going home. Like I'm thinking like these idiots now. Like I'm stuck on Mars and I'm addicted to technology and I don't know anything about life or the real fabric of space time, but I'm going home. I'm going back to the source that emanated me. All right, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, engage. Let's punch through reality. And like they just made a giant mess of it. They didn't really do what they wanted to do in terms of the restoration of bringing themselves to the zeroth dimension. And instead, they ended up in a quantum indeterminate state. These words don't accurately portray, but they help to give you a flavor of how these things happened. And you can also consider whether it was just their folly or their capriciousness, or whether it was intentional, whether they're like, I'm going to try to find a way to be eternally not dead, but not alive. And then I can be an eternal troublemaker. So that is not eternal life. Please know that being in an unresolved state on the membrane of death is not equivalent in any way to eternal life. When you have eternal life, it is very much what I talk about in the membrane, the path of light class, where you are on the bullet train of infinity, moving at infinity plus speed, beyond the speed of light, and experiencing the totality of all light at the same moment. So very, very different conception of what eternal life is than the very flawed and erroneous sparks of individuals of consciousness who thought that eternal life could ever be something that is like not supposed to be in existence, a technical impossibility that is neither alive nor dead and has to vampire off of others. Like these are two very different things. Okay, good. So you are totally with me on that. Let me also consult my notes and make sure that I'm getting everything that is absolutely important. Good. One of the things is that you come from light speed and you coalesce into matter, but that this is not a punishment. So some Gnostic philosophies dictate that just being here in physicality means you have done something terribly wrong. Like what? Like you're not ephemeral pure energy. You're not moving at light speed. Like, oh, like you must have really pissed somebody off. And now you're here in matter. And matter is a prison and a limitation. And I'm trying to be like evil and maniacal. Be like, you cannot wait to be free of this prison of matter. And I do not portray the experience of matter like that at all. And also, I come from ancient Kandahar Atlantis, where the brochure was very nice and very accurate. So in this world, it might feel as an injustice or an imprisonment to be here in the material world, but really you are a miracle embedded within a larger miracle. And it is an amazing opportunity. And I'm hoping to restore the life affirming aspects of being here and really redefine back to its original intention of what this world is supposed to be. I say this because you circulate from this place of a mathematical potential out here into the world of red. And then so here's all of my color coded little guys. You're out here from the center and you come into the world of red, and then you're here in the world of matter. And that's not a punishment. It does mean that you are light that is no longer moving at light speed. And that is how you have matter, like you have a body. And I always tell you that matter has as its root word mother, like mater, and that is maternal, loving, parental expression. But I also know now from many years of teaching my class that many people have a fraught relationship with their mom. Like maybe things are not so perfect. Maybe things are up and down. Maybe if I say people like, oh, your mom, yo mama. But if I say something about your mom to you, some people do not have a pleasant association. So I am now, very, very infinitely aware of that. Like when I talk about the marriage between the violet and the indigo chakra and how it's a perfect partnership. But I recognize when I say marriage, some people automatically think like that's an imperfect, flawed, very problematic thing that people have in this world. Marriage, divorce, alimony, all these things that it brings up. So please take your associations away from your own biological mom, especially if you have any mommy issues, which is okay, and bring it towards the cosmic parent. Consider that you are embedded within matter as your cosmic parent, and that you are here gestating in this protected fabric of reality to grow your consciousness. in the same way that you gestated within the womb of your mother to grow a physical container to come into the world. You did not do something wrong or erroneous or worthy of punishment by doing that, much against what the Essenes say. No, you did something that was a miraculous level of spiritual aspiration, even considering the journey that a consciousness takes to be able to inhabit a tiny egg and then crack out and hatch and come forward as a like a newly born chick. All of that is so difficult and so unlikely. There are so many times when it doesn't work that we understand it takes an enormous amount of effort and personal willpower and engagement to come into the world. So coming into the world is not like, oh, I don't know, I don't have anything much better to do, or this is a rotten punishment. Oh, they forced me to come here. Please know you efforted quite a lot in order to create your body, assemble this matter into a coherence that allows you to contain your consciousness and move your consciousness around even for 1 minute. An enormous amount of effort and time well spent to be able to come into the world and experience these things, because in all of these other layers of reality, you have ephemera and potentials, but not experiences. And you came here to have experiences, and that is the value and the beauty of the physical world of time and timelines, like stories and narratives, but also the physical world of matter and your cellular structure and biology, basically. So yeah, you're a light that has been coalesced into the physical world, but this is not a punishment, and you're only halfway done with your journey, because the other part of the journey is to re-energize the matter that is slower than light to light speed, and then return to the 0th dimension. So as I hilariously describe the Putis and their wrong efforts to try to accelerate themselves out of the world of matter by using some strange form of either technology or time bending, whatever technology or something like that, it didn't work. Most certainly did not work. In fact, it shoved them even further away from the origin that they would want to go to, because there is no way to hack the system. There's no way to play or game the system. There's no way to receive something that you haven't actually earned. There is no way to fake it. You have to do the work to get there. So by them trying to hack or fake their journey home, it just made the journey 10 million billion times worse, more unlikely, more treacherous and difficult. And then in their place, stuck on the membrane of death, they have been parasiting and draining life force energy off of you, alive humans, in your humaneros, as I talk about Carlos Castaneda in some of my teachings here, the concept from Don Juan of the predatory mind keeping humans in soul cages. Like the same way you keep the chicken in a chicken coop. So it's a humanero, right? Like it's your chicken coop, and that you're farmed there for low emanations, low quality emotional emanations. So let's talk about that concept. Of course, I'm brushing on it right now, but we'll talk about it more in depth later in the semester. Yes, there have been many intentionally created aspects of the non-pristine system here, designed to harvest the lower emotions, or basically to slow you down further from your accelerations into some emotional states that are more dense. So the more denser, slower emotional states are things like sadness and depression and even hatred. These are slow, kind of like molasses or honey. It's like glug, 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 glug. They're not really fast and super, super heated and super energetic. Everything that is love and above is very, very fast, very blissful, frictionless. And when I say superheated, just think of it as like, like white hot plasma, like going, or like a laser or something like that. And that's your true emotional state. So these unfair limitations and cages for your not only consciousness, but also for your DNA expression, like how much can your DNA dance? Those have been to slow you down. So when you're a tiny child, you come here and you're like, I'm dancing so much. I'm feeling so great. I'm feeling so blissful. And they're like, look, kid, you better stop feeling so blissful. I'm going to have to teach you about death. And then as they teach you about death, your DNA changes. It goes from this sense of, I have an expectation that I'm going to live forever. I have so much energy. And then something happens. That might be your goldfish dies or your grandma dies, but you encounter death at a certain point. And in not comprehending it, the older people in your world inform you and give you the program of what death is. And you're like, where did my goldfish go? And they tell you your goldfish went bye-bye. Or where did grandma go? And they tell you grandma went bye-bye. But what really happened to both your goldfish and grandma is that their DNA was dancing like this, and then all of a sudden it stopped dancing. Their DNA ceased to propel them through time. And when you're told this as a tiny child and indoctrinated, they don't say, oh, well, grandma died or your goldfish died, and their DNA slowed down and now they're not being propelled through time anymore. But they also say, this happens to everyone, and one day this will happen to you. And when they tell you that, your DNA goes from being to, I'm going to die one day. They take your trajectory from the expectation of eternal life to the expectation of death. Now, in a very, very flawed sense, human psychology phrases this as a necessary rite of passage, maturity threshold, and something that you must tell and teach young people. But I really think that psychology is so screwed up. Like Sigmund Freud and these guys, like they were all really like maniacs and not very good mentors at all. And that humans have to completely reassess their whole description of like, what is mind? What is behavior? What is appropriate behavior? What is positive behavior? Why do people think and feel what they feel? Like, you gotta throw it all out the window. It's all, put it in the box of things that should never be emanated. It is that bad. Because fairy tales and the tales of death and making children aware of death, pardon me while I hydrate, thank you, is not a necessary part of growth. It is an indoctrination into an expectation of your personal eschatology. And it's kind of like the older generation saying, like, hello, welcome to the world, tiny perfect child. We've all been indoctrinated and we're all gonna die one day. And they say, you're gonna die one day too. And then it kind of like blobs off onto you. And now I'm thinking of like some horror movie. Maybe I'm getting a little bit silly. I think it's called Freaks or whatever, but they're like circus freaks. And they say in that one point, one of us, one of us. So we're kind of being silly here, but that is kind of what they do. Your freakazoid parents or older caregivers try to turn you into a freak by telling you about death. And then the death cult stuff is similarly very horrible religious abuse where children are told, yeah, like if you die in just the right way and having lived in the right way, then you will go to some kind of an eternal paradise. And when they tell children that, they are not talking about the eternal paradise of the singularity or the zeroth dimension or infinity. They're really talking about something that I describe as a spiritual cul-de-sac, a small protected place on the membrane of death, that is what either Christian heaven is or Muslim paradise or the story that is told to many people in their grooming of eschatology. And it is described as a place where it will be the cessation of suffering, not necessarily of total freedom and total self-responsibility and making all sorts of new and amazing wild creations and going every place in the world. It's being in a safe place where you won't be hurt anymore. It is literally the thing that is the most appealing to someone who has been horribly abused through their whole life. Like, this is a person who's like rocking back and forth, rocking back and forth. They're like, oh, my life has been so bad. Everything has been, Satan rules the world. Everything is evil and very uncomfortable here. I'm just like, I'm just going to die. And be like, at least now I'm in heaven. I'm in a safe, protected place where everything is nice and no one is hurting me anymore. Like, to you, that actually sounds very normal. You're like, yes, Aurora, that is what we want. I'm like, no. Okay, so now I am the waitress at the restaurant at the end of the universe. And I'm like, hi, I'm here to take your order. And you're like, okay, we would like a cloudy room that we can be in, please, with no one hurting us and just kind of float there and maybe play a harp. And that's paradise. And I'm like, no, this sounds like the worst thing in the world. Like, you're ordering the tuna melt. It is gross. You do not want that. No, you want freedom. You want the capacity to go where you want to go, not be stuck in some kind of a cul-de-sac. And you want to be moving at light speed and beyond. And you also want total self-responsibility. Like, you want to be free to go any place and do anything, and also take responsibility for the things that you, places that you go and things that you do. And yeah, that's like, you know, like whatever, a nice healthy salad or some grilled chicken or something like that. So truly, that is what paradise or the world of pure light is like. You're not stuck in a stasis field. You're not stuck in a moment of non-evolution. You are moving at light speed and beyond and growing and evolving at an enormous pace. When I say that, some of you are indoctrinated in your mind, things like, oh, like an AI and how fast one of them can develop. And in my mind, I'm kind of like this. I'm like, okay, like I'll take your analogy, like an AI and how fast they develop. But I'm putting down my clipboard in moderate disgust because I don't want you guys to like heroically think about an AI because that's the lamest loser technology form of mind in the world. Think of yourself. You mean like myself that can have accelerated development and learn a million things a second and get faster and faster and faster with everything that you learn, and then get basically a hyper accelerated learning process into the point that you are expanded to the intelligence that is the size of the entire galaxy. Yes, like that. Okay, good. And I never mean to condescend to you. It's like when I'm in my dance class and I'm telling everyone like I'm telepathic and I can hear someone out there is thirsty and I'm like, you didn't think to drink a glass of water before you started? I'm like yelling at you. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I hope that you find it hilarious. Okay, let's talk about some of the, back to my clipboard, some of the qualities of the source or of infinity. All right, you can read it off for you here. It is the presence of all timelines, the presence of all possibilities, and the presence of all probabilities. So let's talk about, it's also, I want to finish my train of thought and then rewind. The genesis of everything, the genesis, like the beginning of everything. So this is where all of the timelines start. Once upon a time, everything started here. Then those narrations are emanated into the world. And then also this is the destination or the culmination or the end of all of the stories. But the stories never end. There are paginations. And it's important to note that in my dance, and I love teaching people about the actual dance, like we dance, 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 dance. And then at a certain point, you will see my hands come together. It's like magnetic field lines. Bring my hands together and I interlace. And this is also happening at a DNA level. And what's happening is the end of one series or set of patterns comes together. I'm going like kachunka. It contracts together, contract, kachunka. And all of those causality structures. And I know I confused with my statement about causality structure, but just stick with me. It will come clear. Come together. Like all of these stories are going like this and all the stuff happens. And then here's the end. Da-da, the end. But the end is not the end because out of that then is the genesis of the next beginning. The force, literally. Now I am like using like just vectors. My hands are just energy coming together. Energy, 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 energy comes together, clicks into position. And then what happens with all that momentum? It's got to go somewhere. Expand, expand, expand. And that's the beginning of the next. And that is literally what's happening in this I want to say positive matrix because you all hate that word, but it is a connection. There are many of these. There's one of these connecting up here, down here, down here, down here. And all of these singularity points vibrate back and forth. And you have this amazing bouncing that is exactly like a laser. How does a laser work? It is light that is organized in a laser in your world. Even at the supermarket, that little thing, they scan your thing with a laser. So inside of there, somehow they have a place where there's two mirrors, and the mirrors have to be perfectly aligned so that they are perfectly parallel to each other. And then you have light energy that is sent out over here, and it bounces over here. And what it does is it bounces back and forth between the two mirrors. And as it bounces back and forth between the two mirrors, it organizes itself and it becomes coherent. All the ups and all the downs fit together. And then at a certain point, it's so organized, it's ready to exit the little organizational box and come out and be used to scan your groceries, right? The same exact thing is happening with your chakras and your lives. I always talk about this lower quadrant as being your life. But this is your life, and this is your life, and this is your life. I know that was an old show. I don't really know that show, but this is your life. You have many different parallel concurrent existences. And you also even have the implied one that's over here, because I only could make this as a sculpture, but I would like to make a sculpture the size of the room. And then I have to like live my life. I can't just have my room like full of sculpture. Let's make an environment, and I'll make an environment like this. And then also let's make it a moving environment where first we have the singularity over here, then we have the singularity over here. And when it jumps back and forth between these two places, that you can imagine this over here as like a stretchy bed sheet that makes it go into here and it comes into position and it goes kachanka. Then it emerges with that effort and it comes over here and then it makes this go like this and it comes over here and it goes kachanka. Then it stops because it's equal opposite force and it goes in the opposite direction, kachanka. So equal and opposite force. Here's my two timelines coming together. It's like the channel tunnel coming together, coming together, coming together. Kachanka. I meet my equal opposite force, mirror reflection. And now what do? Kind of like tuck my head under, do a little flip, and then I go in the opposite direction. Ka-chunka, chunka, 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 chunka. And then this guy's going to meet equal and opposite over here. This guy will meet equal and opposite over here. Then they will do their flip, and then they will come back in this direction. And you comprehend now that you are actually this highly focused laser of coherent light that is moving through time between these various reality structures. The concept of going at an angle and meeting death at any time means you have done something very wrong. That would mean like you're not even emerging from the laser tube to scan somebody's groceries. I am joking horribly. You're not even emerging from the refinery of consciousness to be in the world of pure light as a laser-focused consciousness. You're busy messing around on the membrane of death. So now you really comprehend everything that is about the necessity of death or the desire of death or the inevitability of death. Those are all erroneous pieces of information or false light that bring you away from that central alignment and towards death. And you can spend many, many, I don't want to say infinite, but uncountable numbers of loops and iterations exploring the wrong math that is on the membrane of death. Hopefully, at a certain point, you would say, this is all BS. This is all crapola. This is all wrong math. I have to try to do something different. And when you do that, those feeling states put you onto the central core timeline. Those feeling states change and evolve how your DNA is dancing and growing. If you're like, well, my parents indoctrinated me into a death cult, and so I shall follow their prescriptive motions through life, and then I will go to the membrane of death. And if you're one of these cults, like, like the Mormons or whatever, they are very, very indoctrinated into like, yeah, you're going to die. Everyone's family's going to be in heaven. But some of you are laughing because I also know that some of you have fraught relationships with your family. You're like, I don't know if my heaven would include my family, right? Ha ha ha. But no, truthfully, but there's something very homogenous about certain cultures where they're like, yeah, I love my family. I love my mom and my dad and all my sisters. We all get along perfectly and we all want to go to heaven together, like the totally homogenous Brady Bunch society. And they're all gonna get, whatever, schlumped up into heaven together. And we can make fun of this. It also is very much a part of death cult coping mechanisms. When a person leaves reality, they're on the membrane of death, to be like, that wasn't a bad thing. God put that person there. And then one day God is going to do the same thing to me. And then we'll both be hugging and, kissing and snuggling in heaven. That's going to be so nice. It's like that is coping and not healthy and not positive in any way. So I hope that I'm equally insulting to all the different religions and death cults that are in the world. A big part of when I came here as Aurora with the concept of flying rainbow lasagna was to poke all of the sacred cows in order to give you a new cognitive expectation that you do not have to die. Literally, since this shape was innovated in 2001, you do not have to die. And I am also here living that truth. So higher dimensional mathematicians don't just write something on a piece of paper and we're like, here's my equation, name something after me, right? They're like, no, we live our equation. So I am a higher dimensional math expert, and I am here living the truth of the equation that I created. And this is not really accurate to say it is an equation. It is more of a higher dimensional math proof. So I'm not even that advanced in my comprehension of the material objective university levels of math. But when you go beyond genuine addition and subtraction, we'll say it, linear equations that are about the foundation principles of addition and subtraction, and you start to get into the more abstract levels of math that don't necessarily describe a physical presence, like 3 apples plus 3 apples equals 6 apples. The higher dimensions of math in your physical university realm are proofs, and these are more like logic considerations. I have a fly in here, so please excuse me. You'll see it distracting me, I'm sure, at the most important times. So a proof is like a construction of logic. Here's the ground floor. This is true. Here's the first floor. This is true. Here's the second floor. This is true. And if all of those things are true, then the upper floor and the roof has to be this. All right. And when I look at your world, I see the foundation principles of how matter is created, how biological life is sustained, how these time shapes are created. All of that pre-exists me and my efforts as a higher dimensional mathematician. Those levels of reality were valid but flawed. The expression of reality was not in its fullness, and there was a corruption of the system. The boat didn't float, the boat sank. There was a corruption of the system. And instead of trashing the whole system, you're like, this system sucks. Look at what happened to these people. I'm like, let's do another layer. Let's say the foundation of reality is fair. And then the first floor is fair, and the second floor is fair. But then this area where everyone is dying and being stuck in some satanic, dystopia, that's not fair. So I'm like, what if we write another story on top of this area over here, like even not like the not even the third floor or the roof, but like the weather vane on top of the roof. All right, that's the flying rainbow lasagna stuck up on the top of the roof there, and that completes this math proof and makes it possible for the fabric of space-time to be sustained and restored. And you don't have to throw the entire thing in the bin. This is you and relates to your DNA. Instead of saying, there's something wrong with my body, I'm going to die, throw me in the bin. You can be like, there's something not right about my body or not optimized. I'm going to flying rainbow lasagna and rewrite my DNA, rewrite my biological cellular structure, and rewrite my trajectory through time so that I do not have to die. I'm not going to just dispose of myself. I will maintain myself and modify myself. This is literally what it means when I say the fabric of reality, the cosmos, augments itself by necessity. The fabric of reality is like, things are very screwed up around here. If somebody doesn't do something soon, I'm not going to exist very much more. I think I will create something new, like the flying rainbow lasagna. Out of this new amendment or finality of the math proof is the resolution of all these other cosmic laws. Cosmic laws. So like in math, 1 + 1 = 2. That's at the foundation. You can't be like, sometimes it equals 2, but sometimes it equals 3 or infinity. That does not work. So the flying rainbow lasagna does not call into question any of these other previously established foundational truths about reality. But what it does do is give an additional degree of freedom in responding to the non-pristine nature of reality. A bucket and a mop so that you can fix things. And the things that you fix are your time structures and things that are inside of your DNA, but also your externalized reality structures. So a lot of what I do in this class is help you to cognitively reform your conception of the inside versus the outside. We're looking at all the different definitions of duality, looking at boundaries in your life. Boundaries are excellent to have on the ego and materialistic level. And also, as you move into the higher dimensional levels of hyperspace, what you do is not a complete dissolution of boundaries, but a selective bringing together of formerly divergent realms. So it's like saying, here's my house. There's some rooms that don't even have a door. I cannot get in there in order to clean up or do anything that's important. And when you fly in rainbow lasagna, you create an access point or an entry point into those areas of your own house so that then you can access them and improve them, clean them, and reorganize them. That bridge, that access point, or that door is literally a hyperspace door, a higher dimensional door that is created from the action of vibrating your toroidal energy structure in a higher dimensional space. And the things that weren't accessible to you, like they were walled off from you by bad stuff. That was not part of the brochure. So the original architect did not say, I will build a house for you, but here's a beautiful room that's full of garbage and there has no door and you can't get in there. No good architect would build that plan. That's a bad plan. So instead of saying, oh, the foundation of reality is inherently flawed, this stupid architect over here built this stupid thing, and then we all just have to die. Throw it all in the bin. I'm like, no, this guy is not a stupid architect. This guy built a great plan. This stuff effed SHIT up and is not good. How can I fix that? I can flying into lasagna, and then I can send the bad stuff to entropy, create a door into so you can send the stuff that walled off that part of yourself to entropy. That's the first thing, whatever took yourself away from yourself. But then as you create a new door with flying rainbow lasagna, you can go into these areas of your own genetic house, and you can finally clean house. Because you can be like, wow, this is an aspect of my own self I have not had access to for however many days or lifetimes. And now I can finally get in here. You have to do it with, of course, a lot of self-compassion, because you can be like, wow, this place is a effing mess. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. I got to fix all of this up. And some of those things might even be biological imperatives that are about the necessity of food and drink, or the expectation of mortality, or the expectation of, which is, the expectation of death, or the expectation of religious ideals, what will happen to you in afterlife. So in this generation, since the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna, it is not necessary for you to experience death or go on to the area known as the membrane of death. And that's why I am hugely at odds with any philosophy or religion that tells you that either you have to die or you should die, or if you're a good person, you're going to die. And then here are the ways that good people die. None of that works for me. And I've been accommodative of humans having those mental patterns and also genetic patterns, because you had those errors up until flying rainbow lasagna. I created this as an eraser so you can change things, and then not everybody knows. Not everybody knows. So it is my job to make you aware of the things that you can do now, but also it is your job to take those potentials and run with it. So I don't force you. That would be against freedom. I say, here's some ideas. Take it and run with it and apply it to your own DNA. Also, please know that as I'm inspiring you to take these concepts and apply them to your own body, I'm exemplifying it. I'm like, look, here's how I do my dance with my body. You can too. But you must personalize it, because part of the wonderful encryption of reality from exploitation by evil is in the complexity. Each person has a unique fingerprint. Each person and organism has a unique genetic code and a unique soul signature. I'm speaking fictionally, of course, because one time I got some kind of a problem from the platform that I upload my videos on for saying that. So I'm only speaking fictionally about this whole entire thing. But fictionally, your DNA does have a unique soul signature that connects to other people and can be perceived by them. And this is so that you're not easily exploited. Let me just drink a bit of juice over here. Hold on. If you hear Cheeky's playing in the background, if you feel like doing something, getting very excited. Yes, you are not required to continue with the patterns that have come to you from either previous generations or like that aren't alive anymore, or the most recent generation that is still alive that tells you what is possible in your life. Different things were possible and appropriate for previous generations. It is always up to you in this moment to make an assessment of the guidance that you receive from those other generations and determine whether it applies to your own life. So now I'll tell you, like, in my experience coming here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I have always offered this new pattern to people of all ages. Like when I encounter someone who's a tiny infant, I'm like, I don't say it with words because they don't do words, but with my energy and the math of my body, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm lasagna and this is what this is. And some of them are like, I love it. Like you can tell, like, like they want to be held by me or cuddled or something like that. Or I've told you when I go to the park and little kids are there, their mom is pushing them in the stroller. And some kids, like, they see me and I'm walking by and I'm doing my Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and they reach out and they're like, lasagna, like lasagna. And I always wave to them like, hi, kid. Like they're obviously pro lasagna. And when I walk past other kids, and I'm always like smiling and nice and, wearing like, I have a friendly dog, I'm a friendly person, but some of them look at me and they're like, oh, and they kind of hide behind their mommy. And what is happening there is they're not afraid of me. I'm a good person, not worthy of fear. I would never harm, a tiny child. But what they are mostly worried about is changing their ancestral genetic code. When they see me, I'm like, hi, I'm a totally new, undefined genetic code. Want to do weird new stuff? And they're like, no, I really don't. I like the way my people have danced for thousands of years. And I like the way my mommy and my daddy dance in this generation too. And I don't want to do flying over lasagna, and I'm going to stick with what I believe. And I'm like, that's great. That is called freedom. And that's literally how I came here in your world, like over 25 years ago, in order to offer this to humanity so that people could have an opportunity, but it is not an imperative. It's not something that you must do. It is an aspiration that you can do if you work really hard and you try really hard and you really, really, really want to do it. So again, it's not something that is imposed upon you. It's not something that I think could be non-consensually forced upon someone else. It's like forcing someone to play Mozart. Like that does not happen. Like if you take someone's hand, like play, like on the piano, like play, damn it, play, and you're like this does not sound like music. So you cannot do that. Obviously, not my personality and how I do this, and also everything that I am preparing you for is for the world of light. What is it like when you're in the band? When you're in the band, no, you cannot be in the band if you're like, I am used to someone forcing me to play good music. Please, who is going to force my hands on the piano today? We would look at you like you are bizarre. Be like, play your music. Like you're in the band. Like please play your music. So no, it must be something that is arrived at through your own motivation and through your own choices. And this is why I also say that the experience of being I will admit this first to the meeting of being right, do get a mind wipe every time I do that. The experience of darn it, get a mind wipe every time. Sorry, that's why you very difficult. Okay, sorry. Always disappointed when I take the temptation. I'm like, I could just touch that thing and then I won't get a mind wipe, and then I get a mind wipe. Okay, we'll return to it. I want to talk about the Taurus being balanced energy, what you send out and what comes back to you. So all of these, let's talk abstract energy. And I still haven't talked to you about the proportions, but I should do that too. Okay. These abstract energy force fields here are all two-way highways. So I have shown you that this comes from here, circulates out here, comes around a big unseen circle, comes back to here, and then goes like this. There's also a complementary energy pattern that comes from here, and it goes this way. And then it comes out over here. And then it comes out over here, it rejoins over here, and it goes this way. So this membrane of death, we're used to perceiving it coming from the source and then flowing out down towards here. But there is another layer to that membrane that flows this way upwards towards here. So yeah, that is a boundary that you literally cannot go through as the membrane of death, because there are like high energy particles that are moving where they're supposed to go. And those high energy particles, and there's better words for them because they're not like neutrinos, but they're something. They destroy mistakes. When you knit your genetic sweater wrongly and you end up on the membrane of death, the flow of energy is a flow of truth that is undeniable, and it is corrosive if you have mistakes. So if I'm now like the lady on the membrane with my clipboard, and I'm like, hi, if you made it here, you're in the wrong place. You are dead. Hi, welcome. You are dead. You have made many, many mistakes. I am here to inform you of your many, many mistakes. And as I'm going through them and I'm saying to you, I literally am corroding you. You're like, oh, that was that mistake. That was wrong over there. Oh, that was that mistake. I was wrong over there. And as I tell you all of them, literally, it's like being unknit. The sweater of genes, of threads that have been knit or crocheted into a particular final denouement, or the final moment of your movie, is being unknit. The sweater of genes, as it is like the loops of the crochet or of the sweater are pulled out. Take a thread of a sweater and just keep pulling. It unravels, it unravels, it unravels. So this is the unraveling of the genetic sweater. And then what happens is all of the material, which is chromatin, when it is unraveled like that, circulates and goes back. Like if you ended up where my eraser is over here, you get unraveled and then you circulate because the energy is flowing in this direction, circulate back over to here. But you're like, oh, I already read that book and I already read that book and I already read that book. So let's start over here in this position of time that I haven't read yet. And I use the example of the Choose Your Own Adventure young adult fiction series. Maybe you guys read that when you were, I don't know, 11, 9, 10, 11, or 12. It's interesting writing style because it is really multidimensional. The books are written so that you start at the beginning of the story, like you and your friends are in a forest and you're walking on a road, and then you get to the end of the road. Do you turn left or do you turn right? And it will say, if you turn right, turn to page 39. And if you turn left, turn to page 10. And different things happen either on page 39 or page 10. And then at a certain point, you will reach the end of the story where it's like, okay, turn to page 10. Like, you have been eaten by goblins. Please go back to page 1. You got it? And next time you get to that part in the story, we're like, turn left or turn right? Goblins? I'm not going to turn left. I'm going to turn right. And you turn to page 39, you find out, oh, like you have just experienced this. And now you got to eat ice cream. Turn to page 74. And then you go through and you read this book in this way of jumping back and forth, jumping forward, sometimes being sent back to page 1, and then figuring out the optimum pathway to get through that story. This is what you are trying to do in life. When you are born, that's page 1. And page 1 is represented by this pencil layer of reality, page 1 in all of your stories. And even when you're on your ascension path line, you also start with page 1, which is getting born. Happy birthday. And then when you're on your ascension timeline, you're like, last time I tried this. Last time I tried that. Last time I tried this. This time I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to stay on my ascension pathway. So, of course, that is not the intended way to be able to experience life. That is what happens when you're flying blind in this non-pristine system where people have not yet had the capacity to do flying rainbow lasagna. But in the time of ancient concurrent Atlantis, and in the time when you can do flying rainbow lasagna, you do not have to experience or experiment every single wrong note or erroneous timeline and pathway in order to find your way to the pathway that brings you back to your destination. You are literate when you can actually read the musical score of the cosmos, like when you can actually read your DNA and your connection to time. And we do this through, let me grab a beautiful crystal. This is representative of my pineal gland, object not drawn to scale, but every one of us has little tiny crystals in our pineal gland. So you can imagine that, of course, they're microscopic, but I'm showing you a giant one. This is how I anticipate the future. This is how I make choices about which direction I'm going to turn in the Choose Your Own Adventure novel. Will I turn left? Will I turn right? I don't know. How about I ask my inner eye, when I look in that direction, do I see something good? When I look in that direction, do I see something good? This is literally how I make my choices in life because I am flying rainbow lasagna. I have changed and transformed the DNA architecture of this body, and I have restored the innate capacities that you are in the process of restoring in yourself to precog the future. That's my little shorthand for the word precognitive, to anticipate the future. You are all supposed to be able to anticipate the future. This is like being able to open your eyes and see where you are going. Please do not despise yourself if you're not there yet, because there have been a lot of genetic modifications to not only close your eyes, but to put dirt on your windscreen so that way you can't see where in the world you are going. So a lot of the work that I do in service to humanity, like when I do session work and individual things with people, a lot of what I'm doing is helping to clear the windshield. And I do this also when I'm with my team of highly trained psychic warriors, and we're going to do some kind of a group mission to change and transform the fabric of reality. It's the first thing I do. I'm going to clear everybody's pineal gland. I'm going to make sure that there's no dirt on the windshield. Use some Windex and squeegee. We're going to squeegee that all away. And we're going to make sure that everybody can see and anticipate what is going to happen. Like if you're in a choose your own adventure novel, you're like, do I turn to page 10? I don't know. Let me see what's going to happen. That doesn't sound like a good narrative at all. Don't do it. It's not like cheating. It's not like I'm going to turn in the book. I'm going to see what's there before I make my little choice. It is your gift. And it's the gift that we are all given to be able to navigate the time field effectively. That gift is how you read the musical school. That's becoming musically literate. So initially, you might have your gift and you're able to sense, like, there's these little black dots on this piece of paper, but I do not know what it means. And that's fair. And it takes time moving through your life to actually calibrate and be like, when I see these little black dots over here, that is meaning that, and I should go in this direction. But then if I see these other black dots over here, it means go over in this direction. And then you start to be able to effectively navigate your life. When you are really an ascended master, you are able to so effectively navigate your life that you never go on to the membrane of death. This is what our life is like in Atlantis. This is what our life will be like again. We are busy putting a lot of things in the bin and cleaning out the non-pristine system, but we will be restored to this level of, I would say, self-determination. It is the opposite of the philosophy that humans have called determinism, where in determinism, something else is determining you. You're like, it's not my fault. Like something else wrote this story for me. Someone else is the great scriptwriter. Someone else made me wear this dress. Someone else made me do this thing. And it's not only like erroneous, but it is a huge sidestepping of responsibility. Because you were all like, no, Aurora, nobody else made you wear that dress. Like you got up in the morning, you took that out of your closet, and you put it on and you did it. But there are very many philosophical sidesteppings where people say something like, it was written in my DNA. I couldn't help it. I had to do that thing. Or I was carrying an ancestral demon. I had to do it. The ancestral demon told me to do it. Or the more colloquial, the devil made me do it, which is where people are like, not even a specific ancestral demon or psychological challenge that your family line faces or something like that, but really just some amorphous level of primordial evil that you couldn't resist and it made you do something. Like, none of this works. None of this works. All right, good. Because when I tell you about moving into a true heaven, that is literally like the stars in the sky, not a fake cul-de-sac. The fake cul-de-sac heaven is a world where people do not take responsibility for themselves. And in some ways, maybe it's like a lint catcher, a trap for a certain level of consciousness that although it might be well-meaning or desiring of goodness, it is not yet at the level of taking responsibility for what it's doing. If you want to be a good musician, you got to listen to how you sound. And if you're playing very bad music, you cannot continue. You have to change and grow and evolve. So like the truly evil creatures that were on Mars, they refuse. I'm like, you guys, this is me. Your music is terrible. Like, can you shut the F up and stop doing that? And they're like, no, we're not going to listen to you. This is a lot of the reason why I'm in confrontation in this form here. But no, like when your music is very bad, like you should listen when other people are telling you it's bad. In fact, disease and decrepitude is the end result of bad music. Please free yourself from any self-judgment. Like, because you're all like, well, I've had diseases and I'm decrepit. I'm like, no, just stop. Up until this point, and I know you haven't known a lot, and also you're here in the class learning about flying rainbow lasagna, but disease and decrepitude are evidences of non-optimum use of not only your body and how you fly through time. They're evidences of friction and slowing down. They're also evidences of not being on exactly the right story. And in order to be on the right story, you do have to make a choice and propel yourself with the dance of your own DNA into areas of rectification. So please know that in this life that you're living, you're the greatest example of taking responsibility and not living a deterministic life. Other people in the same world that you're in, where they might have had access to my videos or other forms of my consciousness, they might not be listening. And they're like, well, it's not my fault. And, I didn't listen to Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It wasn't determined for me. But I'm like, no, the reason why I am here literally putting my artwork, ideas, and videos into the world on public forums is so that there's more of an opportunity for people to be exposed to these concepts. And if you get exposed to the concept of the flying river lasagna, you're like, wait a minute. Someone told me in a video that this is this genetic new dance that I can do, and I don't have to die. And also, this is beyond any human religion or conception of what is possible up until roughly the year 2000, and that this represents a completely expansive new vista of what humans can experience. It's like that is up to you to take that as a new potential starting point and redefine your experience of what is possible moving forward based upon that. And also, that I'm not just a raving madman. I also come with a lot of supportive evidence, including my own dance within my own body, as I can show you that I have healed and transformed from a non-optimum cellular body problems and have fixed up my house. Like, my body is my house, came with a lot of problems, and I fixed it up a lot. So you're talking about disease and pathology and death and how much you can be responsible for your body. It's difficult, I know, because for you were the person that was here experiencing some form of decrepitude or pathology, and you weren't empowered. But now you are empowered. Now you can change stuff. So let's use an analogy. You used to live in a house that had a dirty floor, did not have a bucket and a mop. And the footprints were your muddy footprints, but it was not largely your own fault. And then when I created Flying River Lasagna, that's like you receiving a mop and a bucket. And I also gave mopping lessons and said, this is what you can do with this. Now take it, do your own thing. And then you took that potential and you used it to clean up muddy footprints in your own home. And then also you stopped walking around in the world of mud and stopped bringing that into your own genetic code. So you must have self-forgiveness, self-compassion, self-celebration. You're like, yeah, I was doing the best I could with this crazy screwed up world and a bunch of people indoctrinating you into death cults and non-optimum circumstances. And what happened with your body during those, erroneous, flawed thought patterns or erroneous circumstances, you now have the capacity to fix and to improve. Please know this, like, as I'm trying to get people not to just expect, like, to dispose of your body in some giant worldwide conflagration, and then that will somehow bring you to a divine paradise. I'm like, no, please don't do that. That is an outdated, erroneous story. And since 2001, you have a better potential story, which is where you can say, whatever diseases or pathologies you had, you are able to now fix them, change them, respond to them, and write a better story than dying. And the better story is so profound because even, let's say, if you're a person who survived cancer, maybe you had cancer 5 or 10 years ago, maybe you even had amputations, and you're like, well, I don't know, I want to be alive, but there's certain crucial body parts that I don't have anymore because they got cut off because of that disease that happened when you weren't more fully in control of your life. Please know that now you are learning how to control your genetic code. Now you are learning how to dismantle tumors. And please know that inside of each one of us, in your DNA library, there's a whole sector called the how-to manuals. And some of those how-to manuals are about, like, how to digest food or how to grow a heart or how to live, how to have an earlobe. But there are also things in there that are like what to do if you encounter a pathogenic microbe, or what to do if you have mutations or a tumor. And then there are also other aspects of fulfillment of your psychic gifts in your how-to manuals, and also how to restore, how to not only rejuvenate your cells if they are feeling decrepit or soul weary, like threadbare from going through life so much, but also to, and apologies when I say because I'm organizing my thoughts, to optimize what you're expressing through your DNA, to improve what you're doing with your time, not just your cellular structure, but to be able to write a better story. And then I tell everyone this, you will in this life be able to regrow, or regenerate is a better word, regenerative, to be restored to your factory settings. And that even includes things like being able to generate new teeth, or restore an amputated body part, like if you have your gallbladder was surgically removed, and people think like, well, how can you live, and maybe you should just die and get another body and do this whole thing again. And I'm like, no, don't just go back to page one. Stay in the choose your own adventure novel where you are now and flying rainbow lasagna. And you really do have these potentials inside of your DNA to learn how to regenerate your gallbladder or your teeth or brain matter or other forms of neurological tissue that medical science of the objective materialist realm will tell you that is not possible. So you're moving out of a world of not only determinism and lack of responsibility, but also you're moving out of a world of imposed limitations, rational limitations about what can happen in your body. And no one can define for you what is possible within your body. So of course, I had many different doctors who were objective materialists who told me what was medically possible in my body. And I've, far redefined that, superseded all of them. And they always like, you can't move to California and you can't, drink raw cannabis juice. And I'm like, watch me. So clearly I did a lot of behavioral things too, but also I cognitively and belief system knew that I could make a better choice and do something better. So again, doctors in this world, and I'm super skeptical of all of them too, because I feel like they have betrayed humanity with their various sprinkles and cupcakes. You know what I mean. But they will also betray their people that they serve, even through the assessment and diagnosis process, by giving a low prognosis to be able to say, you're never going to do this and you're never going to do this. Like, hey, kid, you're never going to do this, but try to live as best you can. And I'm telling you, like, hey, kid, like, you can do this. But it's not random or arbitrary, and you must be an aspirant and you must effort a lot. And also, it doesn't just fall in your lap like someone else does it for you. It is very much based upon your own efforts. So you've made it very far in your choose your own adventure novel. And you're at this moment now where it's like, you do not have to, if you choose atomic bombs, turn to page 334. And if you want the book of Revelations, turn to this page. And if you want to have a different experience of living in a beautiful, pristine world, where you are able to explore the most expansive definition of what you can be and what your body can do, please turn to whatever page 103 instead. And on page 103, you learn that there was this new shape that was invented called the flying rainbow lasagna. That learning about it and applying it to your own life means that you can not only change your narrative of your life, but also change the cellular expression of your DNA and do things that would be considered supernatural in the world. And that's supernatural or medically impossible, but also supernatural in general. And the reassessment of your higher faculties is a big part of that. Like, supernatural does not mean something that requires technology. And I'm very much against technology. Please know I'm doing a lot of things with technology, like my magical crystals and things like that, like to try to survive in the world and help people. But really, when we are able to take down satellites and these other frequency pollutions, you do not need technology. You are the technology. When you aren't beset by satellite force fields, cell phone towers, and these other, again, like the erroneous force fields that come from dirty electricity or poorly structured electronics, then you are connecting with the light that is in the sun and the world of pure light and your own body and your own genetics. That is literally all that you need. So it is very freeing to know that all that you need is your birthday suit and like the sun. But it's also very distressing because in this world, they have done a lot of things against your connection to the sun and against the birthday suit. And that's why, it's very, very challenging. You have to do a constant detox process, constant shielding, constant clearing, all these things, just to be able to have like a little bit of breathing space to connect to reality and know that you're divine and be able to do these things. It should be so much easier. Like, just to do flying rainbow lasagna, I have to do so many things, like clear and detox my body and this and that, and use my red chicken light, and then use my this, and then use my that. It's like, it didn't used to be this way. So the satellite force fields are a big reason of why it's now so much effort to try to be this way. And also, it won't always be limiting us as I'm working very, very hard to be able to bring that down. I want to talk about the proportions of the chakras and go over a few more things, but I also want to get to Q&A. So apologies, because I know that I made you guys wait a long time, and I kind of moved the chat aside so that way I'm not confused by what I read over here. So thank you for waiting while I get to your questions. Okay, so Chris is here. Thank you so much for being in the class, and says, Aurora, to confirm, do identical twins both start with the same DNA? Then after some time, their DNA became different? Is that what I heard you say? You got it. So great question. Identical twins start off with the same DNA. They are the same egg that gets like fertilized and split into two. So literally the same choose your own adventure novel. But what happens is they are reading and experiencing the novel differently. So really their DNA doesn't necessarily change unless maybe some of you in my class are an identical twin, and maybe you're the twin that made it to class and you're flying rainbow lasagna, and maybe your identical twin is somewhere else doing something else and they're just regular flavor, not like lasagna flavor. And that is a possibility. And if that possibility is going on, then believe me, you are no longer identical to your identical twin. You are now the lasagnified version of the identical twin. But the identical twin that is sorry, I'm going to refocus to your question. That is not transformed yet. That is still the same as the other guy. What they're doing is having a different or upgraded experience in comparison to one another. Okay, so here's another great question. Nicole, thank you for being here. Says, how do we send things to entropy? This is really at the foundation of what is flying rainbow lasagna. It is not something where you're like going to wave your magic wand, like in Harry Potter, like Avada Kedavra, I send you to entropy. It is not like that at all. I don't even know what that would be like if you tried to do it like that. Sending something to entropy has to do with a cessation of its formfulness and a removal of its energy. As I've described the dance of your DNA as the dance that literally propels your body through time. When you send something to entropy, you remove the energy from its dance so that it is no longer moving through time. That makes more sense to you when we talk about an organism than if we talk about something that you wouldn't consider to be alive, something that doesn't have DNA. So we'll start here in class with the concept of if something is an organism that has DNA, like a human being, and you want to send them to entropy, their DNA is doing something right now, and it is propelling them through time on a particular timeline. And what you would do is remove the time energy from them. And then it's like pressing the brakes on the car. They go slower and slower and slower until they are not in reality anymore. And then they are not in reality anymore. So when you have brakes on the car, you might be going 25 miles an hour, and then you press the brakes and you're 20, press the brakes again, you're 10, press the brakes again, you are 0. But what you want to do with entropy is send people immediately to entropy, or whatever crapola, whatever junk needs to get cleaned up. Don't just press the brakes. Jam on the brakes. You're not going to crash. You want to immediately end the momentum that that thing has in going through time. I don't have a way to be able to tell you, like, what body part do you use? Like, what's the brakes? What do you press? Like, you're going to have to figure it out. It's a genetic thing, okay? But I'm just describing it as best I can. They don't have a word for it. And you're not using your foot. Like in the car, it's easy. Like it's called the brakes and you use your foot. But in your body, I don't have an answer. And in connecting to other people's bodies, I also don't have an answer. And you're like, is this like killing people? It is different than killing people. It is a cessation of flight through time, and it is a cessation of body processes, but it is also it is a removal from the time field. And what that looks like is someone is going to get left on the road back there while you have moved forward. Oops, sorry, that's my treadmill making me do silly things. If you send someone to entropy, you immediately remove energy from them, jam on the brakes, they're not in reality anymore. That's like them screeching to a halt on the timeline that you were on together. You continue forward, moving through time. So now it's like if I sent a person to entropy, if it is 431, and I'm like, you're going to entropy, kapow. You stay in 431. I continue to move forward in time to 432 and 433. And the stuff that you left behind, it's like frozen. That is what entropy is. The dance of their DNA is not moving any longer. They clearly don't have a cellular supportive form for their consciousness any longer, but also everything that they are is stuck in that moment and does not come with us. Where's my little stylus? So in Path of Light, I often use this to talk about the supersonic high-speed train, the infinity bullet train at the end of time. It's not the right way to say it. At the resolution, okay? When you are on this, you're infinitely hot, infinitely fast, infinitely intelligent, and you are faster than light, and you are with everyone else who is also infinitely hot, infinitely fast, and infinitely intelligent. And there is no one around you who is not moving at light or infinite speed. So you're not like whizzing by someone who is standing at the proverbial train station over here, watching you go like, whoosh, and you're like, see you suckers, and you're all like drinking champagne at light speed. And he's like, look at those guys living the good life. I wish I was one of them. That guy who would be here or this vantage point over here of being at the train station is non-existence. It is frozen. It is not moving through time. And there's a relationship between aspect of self that gets to be eternal and eternally fast and moving through time, and jettisoning or removing the energy from all of the erroneous personages that should not be moving through time at all. And they are nothing. They are no thing. So that everything is moving at infinite speed here, and then you are surrounded by nothing that is not moving at infinite speed. So this person over here is nothing and is not moving at infinite speed. I know when I get into the anthropomorphic levels of your mind, you guys are kind of like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the concept of people being like dead and frozen around me while I'm drinking the champagne and the high life. Like, please release your, anthropomorphic projections, because it is not like how people think of heaven and hell, where you're like, I'm in heaven laughing at you, like, see you sinners. And, like I'm drinking heaven champagne and you're all suffering and burning in the lake of fire. So that's why it's very difficult for me to talk about these things through the religious convictions and also through the duality. As the Flying Rainbow is on, is the first time I'm telling you this semester, is really the graphic depiction of the resolution of duality, good versus evil. But that does not mean that you no longer have boundaries or a distinction, because if I say moving beyond good and evil, then there are a lot of very evil people who are like, hooray, I am an evil person and I am no longer being put into the category of evil and things that should no longer be in existence, because it's all the same. And that's that flawed new age shadow work and reductionist type of stuff that is not accurate. Evil is still in the box of things that should never have been emanated into time. This is why the cosmos augments itself by necessity. Look around. There's all this stuff that should never have been emanated into time. Should we throw the entirety of time in the bin? The answer is no, because there's some good stuff. Puppies and kittens and me and you and good stuff that we like. So what we're going to do is selectively throw some stuff in the bin. The selective things that we should throw in the bin are genetic characteristics that do not serve us and are pathogenic. Also, time structures that do not serve us, do not add to life, and do not add to the continued upholding of the fabric of space-time. So that would be something like a nuclear war. It's the definition of a weapon that destroys the fabric of space-time. There are also characteristics, event structures, and then there would also be organisms or organizations like this might be more difficult because they don't have DNA, but like a club, a society of losers that shouldn't be in existence anymore, that you should send to entropy, like every world government, all right, like the United States government. But you're like, the government doesn't really have DNA, Aurora, so how can I think of it? So it's like, oh, the government doesn't have DNA, it's going along dancing, but you know what it does have? Like a tax base, and it has a circulatory system like an economy, and it takes, I have to drink water, money and energy from the citizens and then uses it in a particular way. So sending the government to entropy would be to remove life force. That would mean remove currency from it. Also, to remove the structure of thought forms that upholds it. So organisms have a thought form structure that upholds it. Like a whale is like, I'm a whale and I'm the definition of something that swims around in the ocean. And I do this and I do this and then I do this, right? Government has a sense of self-definition. Like I'm the thing that does this and I'm shaped like this and I act like this. So in order to send it to entropy, you would have to destroy or de-energize that thought structure that is vivified by the emotions and physical currency, the money of the population. Hold on a moment, I just need to hydrate. So, how about a religion, like sending a religion to entropy? What would that look like? It would be like removing belief from the religion, removing adoration from the deity or the object of adoration, the idol, removing the idolatry. And it would also look like dismantling the edifices. So sending to entropy any kind of organization or society, like a religion or a government, it would look like dismantling the building that it lives in and or repurposing it. Like it doesn't have energy to vivify it. Nobody believes in it anymore. And that building is now, we're doing something else with that building and it is no longer relevant. I'm going to have to continue to talk with you about throughout the whole semester. Apologies, because my brain is a little tired of exactly how we send things to entropy. In your lasagna practices for new people, what you should do is start local and then go global. I know that that's an aphorism around here. So what I mean is first start with your physical body and your own DNA structure. That is what you are most innately connected to and what you are most responsible for. Like we're all collectively responsible for a lot of other things that are in our world, but the physical body form is what you are innately responsible totality-wise for. And what you can do is within your own body, turn down the volume or press the brakes on the characteristics and thought structures that are not optimum, that do not bring you towards eternal life, that do not bring you into positive levels of the narrative story of reality. And so, I would encourage you to go through your belief system, take out any of the programs or projected expectations that others have put into you about what life is, what death is, what you can expect, and to no longer energize those motions within your own body. And part of it is turn over every rock and poke every sacred cow. Because whenever you find a thought that you're not allowed to think, a forbidden thought, that is where you will find real growth, like things that you can really learn and grow from. So if you're like, I am not allowed to think this, or I'm not allowed to think or say this, that's what you have to think or say. Some things like, maybe I'm not supposed to die. Because there's so much stuff, especially like in Christianity. It's kind of like, you're supposed to die. You're supposed to die, live a certain way, die a certain way, and then you go to heaven. And to think the thought, maybe I'm not supposed to die, is almost like a forbidden thought, because then you're going to be like, what about all those guys? They all died. They blah, 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 blah. And like your mind is just going to give you a lot. Your intellect can give you a hard time. So when you start to think these forbidden thoughts, you have to have an enormous amount of self-love. You're like, what if I think this? What if I think this? And what people start to do, hopefully on their journey, is to start to challenge whatever religious proposals have been projected upon you by previous generations, where you're like, do I really think that? Do I want to think that? Do I want to energize that? Also, other definitions of like, what is God? And why do things happen? And what is good and evil? So in giving you this proposal of flying your lasagna and the idea of balancing energy and entropy and the idea of redefining what the singularity is in its expression of characteristics, I am not trying to give you extra duality because you already have good versus evil. And I'm not here to be like, okay, well, now turn it into energy versus entropy. And the good people go to energy and the bad people go to entropy. And I'm like, no, that is not what I'm trying to show to you. In fact, when I first came here, and this is some big stuff, I intended to make the flying room lasagna available so that, let's say a person has a lot of bad genes or ancestral problems and demons that are flowing through them. And what you can do is say, instead of tossing the whole person in the bin, Even if they've got like 85% bad stuff in their genes, what if we can turn down the volume on that? And what if they can still be here? If they're 15% of goodness or, non-crappiness. It's not being a whole person, but at least it is a quotient of what they can be. And through the horrific deployment of the Starlink satellite system and many other assaults on me and what I can do, the evil ones of your world have basically said they are not willing to do that. They really only want to have their whole organism destroyed. They're like, no, don't just destroy or turn down the volume on these various characteristics as you so generously offered to us when you first came into this world. No, please destroy every cell in our body. Please destroy the whole entire organisms, that the whole entire person is killed. This is what we far prefer. And I'm like, well, if that's what you far prefer, I will certainly accommodate your wishes, but this is not what I originally came here for. And also, I'm not going to rewind to being like, well, how about I just turn down the bad music and leave your okay music playing, evil person? Because now that they have done certain things that are direct attacks against me, I'm like, oh no, I'm really not required to sustain you in my world. I'm not just going to turn off the negative genes and leave your other genes flowing or activated. I'm going to get rid of the whole entire person. And there are real boundaries there that you have to comprehend. Like, I came here to offer flying rainbow lasagna as an additional thing that people can do. And the people that didn't want to change, and they were like, oh, I don't want to change. I think that you're taking away my identity, my definition of self. I turned down the volume on their pathogenic, crappy genes. They identify with their pathogenesis. They're like, don't turn down my identity genes. I identify as that. Those are my people. My people act this way. That's our religion. That's our nation state. You can't take that away. That's my heritage. Guess what? I will not name the nation state, but they have a flag that has blue and white stripes on it. They don't like when I turn down their pathological genes because they identify with their pathologies. What if your pathological genes and your tendencies of violating and sexually distressing other people are the thing that you identify with as yourself? Like, that's what this culture that I'm talking about is. They're like, oh yeah, we violate people. That's what we do. Violate them sexually. This is definition of what this culture does. I'm like, those genes are unacceptable. I came here to turn down those genes to violate and power abuse. And they're like, no, by definition, we are violating people and power abusing, and that's who we are. And I'm like, if that's who you are as your identity, you can't be in my world. And that's where we are right now in the battles, the spiritual battles that I fight, and how I confront them. I'm like, yeah, no, it was very, very nice. I was Mrs. Nice Guy. Now I am not Mrs. Nice Guy. Now I'm Mrs. Very Mean Guy. And I get rid of whole organisms. And of course, you have to read my comic book for a greater portrayal of what is actually happening there. But please know that initially I was non-confrontational, and I offered an option, and the option is a positive option that did not require the destruction of the entire organism. But of course, like, if they require the destruction of the entire organism, I'm willing to do that. And also, it is totally appropriate now to destroy the entire organism if their DNA and their reality structure narrative involves you. You have overlaps where your narrative of your life and what you think is going to happen affects other people. And you are not in a contextless void. And that's why I tell you, you're not like a child where if you put your head in a hood, then you think the world disappears. No. So if some people are here wishing for the book of Revelation to be literal, or for some kind of a death cult paroxysm of destruction involving nuclear weapons and something like that, those are very, very negative reality structures that affect all of us. So now you start to comprehend in spiritual boundaries, it is not acceptable to say to someone, you do you, I do me. Go be crazy, girl. Go be your crazy satanic self, because they're going to press a big red button and be like, I want to destroy everyone. I'm crazy, satanic, evil loser. You're at the point where it is absolutely necessary for each one of us to not only entropize negative and death cult characteristics in your own body, but in the world around you. You can't energize them or empower those people. And so that means not contributing towards the church or the death cult with your money, not contributing with your belief, speaking against it, and then not elevating those people to positions of authority. They should not have jobs. They should not have money. They should not have oxygen. They should not have glucose. So to make a little page break, as an abstract lasagna, when I entropize someone, what I'm really doing is affirming and reciprocating my relationship with and my loyalty to time, to the abstract nature of time. I am not loyal to a religion or a nation state. I am loyal to time. Time is the substrate that contains my consciousness. And I'm not like, well, I want to be alive, so I'm going to destroy time or mess it up in some way so I can be alive. That is exploitation. And it's also asinine. Those are what the idiots on Mars did. You can't destroy time for your own personal convenience because time is what contains you. And efforts to do that are so self-destructive and idiotic that it's almost like you shouldn't have to tell people, like, don't stab yourself in the effing face. But they do. They stab themselves in the effing face. And if they destroy time or have an impact on time, that has an impact on you. So now we get to my analogy of, if you have a bad neighbor and the bad neighbor is creating some kind of toxic fumes, like burning bad garbage next to you. And it's like, technically it's his yard, but his bad garbage is coming into my yard. The smoke is coming into me. It's making me feel very bad. That's what's happening with people who are engaging with death cult realities and grooming and the technology, AI, transhumanism, and then also nuclear war paroxysms of catharsis and death and non-responsibility, because they all just don't want to take responsibility for the bad things that they've done. They're like, throw it all in the bin. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. I do not consent. And also, it is now time to create a boundary where you cannot live in the same world as neighbors who do not respect you and your boundaries, and you cannot like accommodate them. So you have been accommodative up until this point, but now this is a new moment. And that is personal growth. In all of your relationships, every single one of you has reached a point where you're like, accommodate, 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 too much, no more. And then you say something to someone. And so, whatever, like I've been Joan Crawford, mommy dearest, in a lot of situations where I'm like, is this your coffee cup? Look, you need to stop leaving your dirty coffee cup here, whatever it is. Accommodate, 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 but then this is not okay. You need to stop doing this. People have to do that, setting of boundaries with world leaders, insane psychopaths, and people who have almost co-opted the creation of reality structures to the point of death of all of you. Setting boundaries means de-energizing all of those people. So think about who are the madmen in your world. You know, you have leaders, politicians, religious leaders, corporate leaders, you know, self-proclaimed billionaires or influencers. Those people, like, you need to withdraw resources from them. Withdraw, like I said, money, social status, empowerment, and also basic things that sustain them in moving through time, such as oxygen and glucose. But then at the heart of it, the flow of time. Time is a flow, just like light is flowing, and both of these things are defined by their flowingness. So I don't know if you can perceive time in the way that I can, but what I do in the most expert way is to say, I've made a treaty where you guys are messing up time and refuse to stop doing it, and you don't get to have time flow to your DNA anymore because you're being such giant jerk faces about everything. And I close down or withdraw time from those people. So I recognize that's kind of a black belt move. It's kind of experts only, but I tell you so that you know what is in store for you. Like, even if you are at the beginning of your facility or capacitation through being able to do flying Roomba lasagna, one day you will be at that level. And please know that I am at that level, and it's enough. Like, even if I just do it, then your world is going to be okay. And I'm going to keep doing it. And that's, you know, something that I've portrayed through my comic book, you know, quite a lot. Yeah, I wrote a treaty with time. Me and it was not a good way of saying it. The petitioners are time, the abstract fabric of time, and me. And of course, all of you or anyone else who would want to undersign and add your energy to this. But it was an accusation or a calling out and requirement for cessation of the bad behavior of the people who are exploiting and damaging and imperiling time. And time is a causality fabric where you can do like a little bit of bad stuff, a little bit of bad stuff. Things are going to still hold together. But if you make too many mistakes, and the entire tapestry does not have causality anymore, you can't keep doing stuff. And nuclear war is one of those very bad mistakes. So now when you're like, well, Aurora, you confused me when you said that you can do bringing together fabric of time space with flying rainbow lasagna in ways that do not require causality. And I'm like, yes, that is truthful. But my non-causality is different than their non-causality. And that doesn't make me a hypocrite. It's like saying, like, what is the difference between Mozart and Metallica? Mozart is good music. What do I think about Metallica? Metallica is bad music. Bad music. It does not hang together. It does not sound good. All right. So please, whatever. We can get into a aesthetics battle of the bands at any time, because I know some people like hard rock or whatever. But I'm telling you, the harmonics of Metallica do not hang together in the same way that the harmonics of Mozart do hang together. And when we are looking at a non-transhumanist world, the proof is in the pudding. When you take technology out of the equation, life is the proof of life. It's kind of like you live your truth. You live your embodied mathematical truth when you're in a pristine system, and also when you're beyond technology, especially transhumanist technology. So think of it like whatever. I'll use these little hatchlings as my example because they're really on my mind. You have a certain number of eggs, and they're all, if they're going to hatch naturally, if you're not going to intervene or do something, then you will only have like the most viable life forms come forward. The little guys that can crack themselves out of the egg, manage to get upright, manage to find food, manage to find water. Like, you understand, like, even if you have 100 eggs, like you might have 2 that actually become viable life forms, because you'll have 98% disasters, right? Like, there's not that many that have their self together in order to be able to do that. So like, 2%, this is not really that great. How about if I help the eggs? I will do some technological interference, and then I'll do this and I'll do that, and then I'll try to get the maximum number of these little guys to be alive. And like, you will increase your probabilities, you will increase the amount of life that can be here, but only through technology. And that is not really the intention of the fabric of space-time. For things, there's actually a refinery that is happening. You have 100 eggs, but you're not supposed to have 100 chicks. You're actually only supposed to have 2. You're supposed to have the right 2. And I also, if it's hard to feel your feelings with animals, consider like a sunflower that can have 100 seeds in there. But when you plant them, you do not get 100 sunflowers. Some of them are, recessive. They're not that good. Some of them are special needs. I think 2 of my chicks are special needs, to tell you the truth. Like, if I don't give them water with like a little like thing, like, they're gonna fall over and die. Like, they're barely alive. We'll see. I'm relatively philosophical about it, but it's difficult. Don't do hatching chicks with children unless you want to teach them about the necessity of death. Okay, that's all I can say. And if you want to know the truth, like, if we lived in a pristine world without death, you would actually not have 100 viable eggs. You would not have 100 potentials. You would really only have the ones that are supposed to hatch, and those would be the ones that would come forward. The reality structures would come forward. So in everything, let's talk back to this shape, and then I'll wrap up with questions, because it's been a long, beautiful, good class, and I've firmly liquefied your brains. But in here, when I go forward in the semester, I'm going to teach you that sometimes I do reduction of the shorthand of what I show, because I always draw all of these little toothpicks that come up on the sides, right? And I'm showing you every single one from birth, page 1, all the way up to whatever page they died upon. But what you really only need is the end moment of a person's death. If you look on the membrane of death, what you have is like a frozen snapshot. The person was born here, did this, and then boom, that's their final moment. If you just took that final moment, it really does contain the implied trajectory of everything else that they have been through. So you don't have to keep all of this stuff over here. This all becomes filler. What you really only keep is the last page. And then the only thing that exists in this area of life here is this bullet train of infinity. So the truth is, when you reduce an equation, like cross that out, that's not relevant. Like, get rid of the 2s, get rid of the 4s, and then you've got this. When you get rid of everything that's no longer relevant in the time field over here, all that you're left with is the path of least likelihood, that central core timeline that goes all the way back to the center of reality that emanated you. That ends up being the only thing that exists. So again, bullet train of super speed to infinity is the only reality structure that exists, and there are no other reality structures. We only have the two eggs that will hatch. We do not have the other 98% that are non-viable or like recessive or retarded or whatever. Yes. So, okay, let me get to more. There's always so much more because I want to do the proportions. We're almost at the end of class. Okay, so wait. Great question, by the way. Michelangelo, thank you. And he says, let me just hydrate. Thank you, guys. Oh, that's beautiful. Michelangelo says, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. And that's from A Course in Miracles. Going on to Becca's question says, so the Putis do not have any exalted point of view. They cannot evolve at all like we can. Great point. When you guys so let me get into the distinction between you versus Putis. If you guys got onto the membrane of death, like, of course, I don't want any of these things to happen, but if an alligator bit your face off or somebody, whatever, stabbed you in your brain, you would die horribly, but then you'd be on the membrane of death and all of your genetic sweaters would get unfurled and you would go back to page one and you would try it all again. You would not get stuck on the membrane. These Putis have done some disaster to themselves in a way. They've done some self-harm that has made it to the point where they cannot be resolved. They cannot get past what they have done, and they are not learning from what they have experienced. They're the equivalent of, sorry, a fatty blockage. Like in an artery, they are the undigested emotional energy of the larger body that has not resolved. And even though it's right there being blasted by all of those high energy particles, it's not resolving. And of course, I'm not a Christian literalist, but I want people to know that the truest aspect of the concept of hell is a place of infinite spiritual friction. If a person is at an angle, not good math, not well formed, but they are in this path of light with all these high energy fire hoses of particles coming at them, it kind of like it's not bliss, it's not frictionless, it's the infinite of friction. And what it's meant to do is to corrode away anything that is not supposed to be there. Like as water is the universal solvent, this force that is on the membrane of death dissolves mistakes. And those pathogens, the Putis, have made themselves immune, not the right word, but like the corrosion isn't happening with them. They've been on the membrane of death for all of recorded human history. That is a very effing long time, and they haven't been dissolved. So now you have to understand that you can't just be like, oh, well, like God is perfect and the world is perfect. I'm sure those fatty blockages will dissolve at some point. Like the people are having a heart attack. The fatty blockages are not okay. And you got to do something. Like you got to ream that stuff out. You got to do something to get rid of those fatty blockages so that way your whole entire fabric of space-time universe does not have a heart attack and die. All right. So the clearing of the fatty blockages would be analogous to the resolution of those unresolved emotional time crapola. And the time crapola goes back to the origin of the invasion of this world, the creation of mortality, everything that genetically modified you or sent your chakras out of alignment. When these little eggs are trying to hatch, I'm rooting for them. I'm like, crack out of your eggs. And I'm telling you guys, crack out of your eggs. Crack out of your previously established boundaries of reality and of what you thought was possible and of what you thought that you had to acquiesce to or accept in terms of the bad things that happened in the past. Like, yeah, like a bunch of effed up losers did some bad SHIT on Mars a long, long time ago. Now, I'm picking up the pieces of that for forever. Like, that doesn't sound good. That's like these guys are stuck on the membrane of death and they're keeping everybody in their humaneros and they're vampiring my energy, eating my illusion. I don't like that at all. So what you can do is you can be like, don't steal my loosh, like, like kind of cringing and hiding away. Or you could be like, let's destroy the loosh eaters. The loosh eaters are the dark magicians of your world. They're the ones who generate and harvest negative emotional energy. To say like, coach, don't be unchompable. Of course, I agree with that. And I've taught that for many years, but that is a cope, not a solution. And the real solution is to get rid of the things that have been drawing energy away from us to erroneously sustain themselves. And what they really are is beyond an organism, they are a thought form. They are a thought structure or an organization. That's why I bring up the concept of government. Government and organized death cult religion absolutely reflects and fractally composes the guys on the membrane of death. These are reflections of each other, and they're totally shaped in the same way. And the economy of hell on the membrane of death is shaped very much like the economy of the physical world that you are now seeing like devolving into doo-doos. That's not going to be okay, because you don't want it to be okay, because it is fraudulent and based on stuff that is not sustainable and cannot keep going. So the guys in the membrane of death, they're actually fraudulent. They are not supposed to be there. They should have been resolved a long effing time ago, and they haven't been. And similarly, you guys, if you ever went to the membrane of death, you would be like whooshed away. All of that stuff would whoosh through you and be like, oh, that's what's going on. And now let's go back to the beginning. So yes, the guys stuck on the membrane of death have no hope. You're not going to educate them. They are not here to learn. They have said many times, they are the equivalent of the sweat hogs from Welcome Back, Kotter. They're like, hey, I got attitude. I'm not here to learn. What is this, school? Yes, actually it is. I'm the teacher, and you're supposed to learn. Like, I ain't going to learn from you. Like, up your nose with a rubber hose. And then that's life. That's what you're experiencing. And all of those sweat hogs, those are dark magicians, power abusers, violators of people's minds, but also of their bodies. Like anybody who thinks that you can get what you want by forcing someone against consent. Sexuality, money, fame, any of those things, all of that is wrong. And it's an erroneous characteristic that is actually housed on the Y chromosome, tendency to power abuse, the tendency to violate. And not everybody with the Y chromosome has it, but those that have it at this point have garbaged up the place and are in the majority. So if you asked me the percentages up until 5 years ago, it was like had 11% of non-pathogenic people in the world, and then 89% of very pathogenically infested, bad genetic quotients, people who think that it's okay to violate other people or other organisms or force them or overpower them. And it comes hand in hand with the tendency to power abuse. So you should be powerful, but power abuse is when you use your powers badly. And it's hard on the anthropomorphic level for you to consider what is that and how do I know? But on the abstract level, you can really see very clearly, like power abuse versus acting correctly. So when I do flying room lasagna, it's not my intention to violate another person's free will or to power abuse. But I will also tell you one thing: I am the loudest voice, sorry, Chiqui's coughing in the background, loudest voice in the symphony, and I have no problem with that. I'm like, I am loud because my math is correct and it makes me very loud. So instead of being like, I'm a power abuser, I'm going to force you to do stuff. It's like, I'm not a power abuser, not going to force you to do stuff, but I am very loud and you're gonna have to do stuff as a result. And this is okay. It's part of my confrontationalism in being here. Okay, so that was a great question. Well, of course, we'll go through the fine points and talk more about the Puties as the semester comes to its culmination. Joni says, and thank you for being here, is the female egg actually the one that predetermines, chooses which sperm cell is chosen for its fertilization? And she goes on to say, this is opposed to what science tells us. Science teaches us that it is the fastest sperm that wins the race. You're completely correct, Joni. And we also have to recognize that the male-centered science through the centuries has refused to look at certain things. It has erroneously projected projections upon the expectation of the natural world and the reproductive world, and it has studiously avoided, like, I will not be looking over here. This is where bad stuff is. I don't want to know about this stuff. So please know that everything that people think, what they know about sexual reproduction and how sperm and egg work, you do not know anything, because the scientists were mostly men and they don't really want to know what things are going on. And also there's so much that I will not articulate in this very non-pristine world. But if you come to meet me in person at a retreat or something like that, I will tell you all about the truth of reproduction. It's close to what people call parthenogenesis, but it is not in any way the way that you think it is. And I will make you think forbidden thoughts. Like, I will make you think a lot of forbidden thoughts by telling you the truth And this forum and this digital world, it is not positive for me to talk about these things in this way. And it's not the right time. I don't want this information to be co-opted because I really have seen how I'm very full of information that I'm like, I'm a galactic encyclopedia, like gather around. I want to tell you everything. But in my wisdom, I have learned here, I'm like, some people I don't want to tell this stuff to because they're evil scientists who want to take these potentials and use them for making bad weapons. So I'll tell the good people, but I will not tell the evil scientists, and we'll have to talk about these things that are not on the computer. But to affirm what you're comprehending and sensing in your own body. When the egg becomes fertilized, it's not just a random selection about whichever sperm gets to the front door first. And it's like, knock, 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 I'm coming in. It is definitely a choice that is made by the egg of the potentials that are around it. But a force field kind of comes out of the egg and it selects a sperm and it's like you. And it grabs that sperm and it literally brings it in. This is esoteric energy, not something that is visible under the microscope. So the egg makes a very, very conscious choice. And science also talks about the covering around the egg, that all these other sperm are like coming in. They're kind of like chipping away, chipping away. It's like the defenses. And science talks about it as this very reductionist thing where it's like, okay, like imagine whatever, I've got a brick wall in front of my door and all the other guys are chipping away at the brick wall, and only one Prince Charming says, oh, you guys got through all those bricks. Thanks so much for doing the hard work for me. And now I'm going to knock on the door and see if I can get into the egg. None of that is truthful either. There are very real time potentials that are the filler, the stuff around the edges, not the central core timeline, that are being filtered out by the choices of the egg. So sperm who should not be in reality are sperm that make bad choices, like going up the wrong fallopian tube. If the egg is over there and you go over there, that's like you come to a path. Do you turn left or do you turn right? If you turn left, turn to page 10. Wah, wah, you did not fertilize the egg and you do not get to be in reality. But if you go down the right fallopian tube, then you will have an opportunity. So look, if you end up in the wrong part of the body, that's your own fault. But also there's a lot of other things about like timing is everything. Timing is everything. And what you're trying to do is to combine together in order to create the optimum music. And that means like when is the moment of conception? So it's not just like, boom, like I'm the fastest swimmer and I'm going to come in here, fertilize your egg. It's like, you're not going according to the music. Like you shouldn't be here for another 2.3 seconds. Like you were not the right guy to come here. You came here too fast. Like you have to be part of the cosmic architecture. And it's not just like, I'm the first in line. I get to do it, because that does not make the optimum timeline and it does not make the optimum organism. But now I will speak forbidden thoughts. The whole world that you're in right now is the end result of many non-optimum conceptions happening, many of the wrong sperm coming forward. In fact, let's say this. The egg does make a choice about which sperm it allows to fertilize. And sometimes it chooses none of these guys. I actually want a sperm that's way over there, still in somebody else's testes. It hasn't even been brought close to me yet. I don't want any of these sperm. And that is also a choice of the egg. And I know IVF exists, and that is like totally against everything that I agree with, because that is the technology that makes chickens hatch that shouldn't actually hatch. Here in my little incubator, I had some that didn't hatch. I don't know if I had the humidity wrong or whatever, but I was actually, so like some of them hatched and I was going to clear out the ones that I thought were dead. And I opened up the dome and some of them were talking. They're like, don't throw me away. I'm still alive. So of course, like I cracked open their eggs. I helped them, but you're not supposed to. You're supposed to be like, oh, if you can't even get out of your egg, it can't be in reality. But I helped them out. But they seem pretty strong. And some of the other ones that got their way out of the eggs are special needs. So I recognize like I'm working with the quail, the breed or whatever, like these things, they have had all of their regular survival capabilities totally bred out of them. Like they're totally bred in captivity. And these guys, like, they don't know how to eat. They don't know how to drink. They don't know what they're doing. They can barely stand up. They need help. If you had them out in nature, you know what would happen? Very few of them would ever crack. And of the ones that come out of their eggs, they would get eaten by a coyote in 1 minute. Do you understand? And I use also the analogy in this class of baby sea turtles, where the mom is going to lay 100 eggs, and they're all going to come out and hatch. but not all of them make it to the ocean of consciousness. And they're not all supposed to make it there because some of them are idiots who go in the wrong direction. It's like the ocean is over there, but they're crawling in the wrong direction. And then they get eaten by a seagull. It's like they made the wrong choices. So in our world right now, this may sound very harsh on the human level. It's easier when you think about sunflower seeds not making the right choices and not getting sprouted. But the choices that you're making and that other humans are making right now determine whether you're going to either make it to the ocean of consciousness and be a successful little baby sea turtle, or you're going in the wrong direction and you're on the wrong place on the beach and you get eaten by a seagull. And that is literally what is happening. People's belief systems, like if they believe in death cult religions, or if they align with death cult religion oriented governments and nation states, or if people align with false and fraudulent economies or economic structures, those are all the equivalent of going down the wrong timeline, making yourself vulnerable to seagull eating, or going to the wrong fallopian tube, because those are not the optimum pathways to be able to create the future. So the presence of the sperm around the egg, so that the egg can even make a good choice, also has to do with the larger person and the choices that they make. And so here are some of the forbidden thoughts, like until you restore the full empowerment of a woman to choose who she has sex with and what sperm are available to the egg, you will continue to have a screwed up world full of people who shouldn't even be in existence. Like Aurora, you're telling us that poorly matched partners in conception and in genetics are making people come forward as organisms who are non-optimum organisms and who are actually the filler or the discards or the people who should never have been born. And I'm telling you, yes, that is absolutely correct. That in order to restore your world, what you need to do is totally restore female boundaries and the capacity to say, no, thank you. I do not want your sperm to meet my egg. Think about how many times in human history women have not had that privilege. Women are given their bodies to be able to have that privilege and say, nope, none of you sperm come inside of me. How many times have women been forced or coerced into having sperm inside of them so that these conceptions could happen? And sometimes coercion is not just verbal, and sometimes it's not just buying someone a drink or a beautiful gift or something like that. Sometimes coercion is economic, where it's like, oh, you think you want to live in the world where you're going to have to marry someone. You're a woman. You can't just live. Who do you think you are? A man? No, you're going to have to get married. And you have to have sperm inside of you in order to have a house to live in. I have big problems with this. And when we look at the restructuring of the economy that's going on your world right now, in conjunction with these death cult gyrations and other things like that, it also must necessitate a redefinition of women having access to enough resources to prevent them from being coerced into partnerships. That means that they are being exposed to the wrong sperm. And just think about this, like think about all the gross, physically disgusting billionaires that somehow managed to have like hot, attractive wives. You would not have any of that. You would not have someone who is obviously a well-formed physical woman choosing to be with someone who is not a well-formed physical man, because you're going to get the bad sperm, the wrong timelines, the filler people that are made out of a compromise, not out of a genuine love and a genuine genetic connection. It's like, yeah, it was genuine love. She was in love with his bank account, right? You know it. You know it. Okay, good. So yeah, beautiful question. And I have so many things that I would like to tell people about that. Just know that that's coming on the horizon. Got to clean house a lot before we can even really have this conversation. And also, you know, I'm infinitely aware of how it might be alienating to males, people who have a Y chromosome in my class, to be able to hear some of the things that I say. So please know that this does not blanket apply to every person who is a male or everybody with a Y chromosome, but also know that if you're a man in the world and you want to know, like, what are the things that you have to do in consideration of the characteristics that have to be sent to entropy, you're going to have to do a lot of inner house cleaning and inner housekeeping. And you're going to have to put a lot of things in the box of things that should never be emanated. Got it? in terms of personality characteristics and non-optimum expressions of behavior that came to you from a long line of genetic garbage. All right, you're going to have to clean house a lot, but it is possible. And many of the very, very, fantastic males in this class are doing exactly that. All right. So one more question from Chris says, yes, government will go to entropy because I am the category creator of the on-currency industry. Very good. Keep going. He says, which is the opposite of currency known as the acceptable medium of exchange. I've created the acceptable medium of transfer. Coming soon. Aurora, thank you for confirmation. You're so very welcome. And I'm really, really pleased. Chris, I think that you are doing great work with your mind and with your reality restructuring and belief system at calling out some of these things that are about the economy. I've told you many times in class, all of you, the economy of hell and the membrane of death is a direct analog for the unhealed economic system that we're coming out of, and that we're witnessing its downfall, we're witnessing its dismantling. We are intentionally dismantling it and taking energy away from it to construct something much better. So I think this is a perfect example of this, like taking energy out of something that is inherently flawed, like I call it the satanic dollar or the occult dollar, and instead putting that energy or store of value into something that is a different type of symbol or a different type of substance that is not mentally controlled and occult associated with a lot of negative things. And this is very, very big because everybody who bows down to the dollar is making some kind of a satanic accommodation. It's like, I don't really like this stuff, but I have to do this. Everybody around here is doing it. And how do you survive if you don't do that? And the answer is there have to be a lot of us that say we don't want to accommodate this, that we don't want to vivify or add energy to this. And instead, I choose to add energy to this. Like Chris is creating and educating people about an alternative type of economy and an alternative way of sustaining ourselves in the world. And I very much encourage these types of alternative economies. Because it's like basically saying, I choose not to turn down this road and go with everyone else into very obvious peril and jumping off a cliff. Instead, I choose to go down here, over here, and to construct a better way of doing things. And that is, people ask about willpower and where does it reside in the body? Like it resides in your ability to make choices. Your willpower is your ability to say, I no longer choose that, or I choose not to just go as flotsam and jetsam, like with everyone else, but I make a different choice and I choose to go over here. Please know, just like a sperm, inside of a person is going to choose to go in certain directions and then either will live or will not live. You're very similar. You make the right choices to go in the right directions. You will have that journey of eternal life. But if you do not make the right choices, then you end up down the wrong fallopian tube or whatever. We can make a lot of uncouth jokes about which orifices sperm end up in. We won't go there. Don't open that book. But thank you for the work that you do, Chris. I'm sorry that I'm so silly at the end of class. Joyce says, so much gratitude and appreciation, Professor Aurora. Thank you. Love to Cheeky too. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for loving Cheeky, and thank you for being such a great student in this class. And Michelangelo says, thank you, Master Aurora, for your time, love, and compassion. Expanding love to all. You're very, very welcome. Thank you for the love. Okay, good. So you do need to wrap it up. I'm going to go feed water to my special needs quail and try to keep them alive. We're going to take care of Cheeky. I know Cheeky is sensible enough to be able to eat and drink on her own, but Cheeky needs to get outside a little bit. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Also, I sometimes recognize that my buoyancy and lightheartedness might appear inappropriate. I'm not disconnected from reality. I know exactly what is going on. It is what we do in order to get through difficult times. Nicole also says, thank you for your black belt badassery. You are so welcome. I am pleased to do it. It is my total pleasure to kick butt. And also, I tell you about these things because beyond just my self story or I want you to know about me, I want you to know that I'm doing this stuff so that you have a real hope, so that you're not wow, this bad stuff is going on in the world and are they going to drop an A-bomb in the Middle East and everything. Just I am doing stuff and I can't always articulate or put on a billboard exactly what I'm doing. Just know that I'm doing stuff and you will not have an A-bomb. Have a much, much brighter future than that. Okay, good. And Elmer says, thank you, everyone. Thank you, too. Thank you. People catch this in a wildly different time zones. So thank you to the people who are getting from their work commitments, school commitments, and children commitments, and even managed to take time to get here into class. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so really, force fields of protection surround all of you. I will reiterate it again. Of course, I didn't get through all of my notes, but this is the day that we train for. Not just this day, but this moment. All right, we have been learning about flying rainbow lasagna and about how we can be powerful in our own genetic connection to time. Now is where you really got to use those skills, okay? Don't go into the personal and planetary eschaton. Don't go down the wrong fallopian tube. Really use your inner abilities and your divine connection to construct the ideal and optimum reality. And I thank you so much to people who do the dance with me on Tuesdays, but also to the people who conceive of these things. Like your mind is dancing, your DNA is dancing. You're a part of the overall uplift of doing something different and better. So thank you. Thank you for exposing yourself to these ideas. Thank you for eating at the buffet of lasagna. And I just want to send out an enormous amount of encouragement. I think that right now you're at a very, very difficult time, maybe one of the most difficult times we've ever experienced in your existence. It's an incredible amount of intensity. Please stay in the deep knowing. Please stay in the positive hopefulness. Please, continue to think and expect best, not as a lobotomized idiot, but as a genuine lasagna or a lasagna in training, knowing that these things are very real and that we really can dance and create a much, much better existence for ourselves. Okay. And also, lasagna is not something that you just learn in 5 minutes or even in a 3.5 hour long class. Please throw your books and pencils in the air. You all need to kind of rearrange your brains, go do something fun and uplifting, and then we'll come back next week and we'll keep on learning about things. All right. Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Profound gratitude, intentional positivity, and uplift to each one of you. And thank you for being in my class, everyone.